Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Timberlake Regional School District School Budget Committee. It's 10 minutes after 7. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alan David.
Here.
Eileen Doobie.
Here.
Lee Doobie.
Here.
David Burns.
Here.
Dan Guy.
Here.
Julie Hammond. John Hughes.
Here.
Michael Mascola. Sean O'Neill.
Here.
Jim Paul. Also seated at the committee table is Business Administrator Jeff Dowd.
Thank you. Mr. O'Neill, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is to review and approve the minutes from September 28th meeting. Take a couple minutes to look them over. Any comments, omissions, corrections?
Make a motion to accept the September 28th, 2017 minutes.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor of accepting the minutes, raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so moved. Any correspondence?
We have some correspondence, which I have upstairs, and I apologize for not having brought it down. And I believe the gentleman, it was an email circulated amongst the
That would be me.
Budget Committee, and Joel, can you
Yep.
help me with the last name?
Liturgy? You'll never get it.
Yeah, what he said. I think Mr. Green had some correspondence as well, and he's in attendance as well, and I don't know if you intend to speak. I look forward to hearing from you if that's the case. So, did you get that, Katarina? Joel's name?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll move directly into...
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask, to keep it on the topic of this, the correspondences.
Yes.
I did bring that up, but I'd like to talk about this topic. Would this be an appropriate time to bring that up right now?
Sure.
How is this committee going to handle correspondences that come in here? Because I think it's really disadvantage to I believe, to the committee, that we have two people that have contacted us, and we're gonna turn around and find out now what's gonna happen in the next couple of minutes during the delegate session to what they plan to bring forward. It would be nice as if we could get those correspondences that come to us in the day and age of electronics. We could just easily forward that to the entire board. I'm not looking for a discussion over that, but at least we could be aware of the content of the email and their respective concerns.
That seems reasonable. Is that doable, Mr. Dowd?
You're not on the distribution list?
I did not receive any of these.
Oh,
We've got no correspondence at all.
for heaven's sakes, I'm looking at it, it says TRSD Budget Committee. So let me have that updated, because you guys should be getting contemporaneously.
There's a couple things with that, and it's that, I mean, John and I were talking earlier about all this data being here on SharePoint. I was here earlier today to pick up my
Yep.
packet. They weren't ready. I mean, we talked about having stuff done a week beforehand, and it seems like we already even started the process, and I think we're just digging deeper holes, and I'd like to start at least at ground level when we start getting into the actual numbers of a budget, not
Yeah.
trying to find data.
I'll address that during the
Okay.
administrative portion,
you.
so. and I will make sure, because it was my, in fact, if anything, I'm going the opposite way, thinking, just as a reminder to everyone on the board, when we do receive correspondence, as I think you had noted last year as chair, and I don't think we've mentioned anything about it this year, we always have to be cautious in responding to the group and holding a meeting, if you will, outside of a meeting. So when the correspondence does come through, and it does come through to the entire committee, I'm always dubious of too much back and forth amongst all the committee members. If there is an issue or a question, if it's directed to the budget committee chairman, perhaps, that clarification be brought up at the next meeting. But it's actually quite the opposite. I was thinking, geez, I have to make sure everyone knows not to start a meeting on an email chain.
I'm quite aware of that.
Yeah, but you weren't on the email, so that's not helpful, so.
What I would do last year is, typically there's a main email address for BudCom. And typically that emails get forwarded, a rule gets set up and they get forwarded to the chair. Last year, my own ignorance, I didn't set it up that way. So we'd get a lot of in the correspondence, but people did email me on my personal email address directly. What I would do then is distribute it to the entire budget committee, to their individual email addresses. And then I would always put in the postscript, if you will, or after my signature, bold red, the RSA that's cited, don't reply to all on this email. So, because if you do, then we're constituting a meeting. So if you have questions about it, reply to me directly or bring it up at the next meeting. And that way people received the email real time and it wasn't passed around in the folder.
I appreciate not. I had no idea that you all weren't receiving the emails as part of that, so thank you for bringing that to my attention. And going forward, what would the protocol on that be? Would the
You
email?
send it to me, and then I would distribute it.
You have everyone's email to
Yes,
send it
I
out?
do.
Perfect. Yeah, okay. That sounds good to everyone.
Yeah.
Good.
Still my 2 cents in there real quick. So at the last meeting, we talked about correcting the distribution, because I hadn't been receiving emails. So I don't know if you've sent any out since the last meeting, but I haven't gotten any. So if you sent them out, I'm still not receiving them. Just, I guess, look into it to make sure we're all accurately on that list.
Yeah, I think one of the issues was a SharePoint issue as well. So, and perhaps as we get to the end of the meeting, we have a lot of folks here now. When we get to the end of the meeting, we can talk a little bit about making sure that everyone gets notices on updates and that sort of thing from SharePoint as well. That'd be, I think, helpful. So,
One other point on that. So for some reason I thought last year it was on our SharePoint site. I guess I was wrong. But there's a members section on the public-facing portion of SharePoint. There's a members section. It lists all the current members of the budget committee, their name, the town they represent, their phone number. I thought it had email addresses last year. It doesn't. Is that something that for anyone that wants to publish their email address, can we get that added?
yeah, so let's, I'm gonna make a note, and at the end of the meeting, we can
Okay.
look into that a little bit more, make sure everyone knows where it is and that sort of thing, so. Excellent.
Any other issues concerning correspondence? Okay, I'd like to move on. We have, for delegations and individuals, I think we have a couple of people who might want to present.
Yeah. Go ahead, you can stand down.
So, you're right, that was on the list there, on the page, but I don't think every email address was on there. Just so you know, I got it from someone, and they presented it to me, so if you didn't get it, I apologize. But I basically feel like my taxes go up every year, and then I saw the $300,000 number for the fiber optics, which I feel like we're kind of reinventing the wheel, because I believe the Comcast services every town, and now they offer a 2,000 megabit per second connection, which will give you theoretically unlimited users. So that would mean to me that the schools it would support the school system, and then there would be no maintenance involved with the wiring, because it's not your problem. If it's your infrastructure, you have to take care of it. The other number that bothered me was, well, this room. I believe the number on this was 14,000 for microphones. Seems awfully high. I don't know if there's no offense to Mr. Henderson, but I did this for 16 years as an audiovisual director at a racetrack. So I'm very familiar with doing this. I'm a little bit nervous at public speaking, but it just seems the number's really high for what it is. And I don't know, and then the number with the cameras. That was the other thing. I see my tax bill go up 10% every year. It's supposed to go up another 10% this year. I mean, at what point do people basically afford where they live? you know? That's my concern. I mean, I'm more than willing to share any information I would have with them if I could give advice or whatever. Because that's what I did for so long. I feel like, and a lot of people say, well, they bitch online about it. And they talk about different people here. I'm curious to see how it actually is here because I want to see how it actually works. I only see the other side. But then everybody says, well, we'll be here, and then they never show up. So I'm curious to see how it all works. And I just I just thought that was a really big number to basically reinvent the wheel. And that's really all I had to say.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Arthur Green of Sandown.
We get an announcement. We used to have to do that for ourselves. Oh, no, I like it. It makes me feel more important. Thanks. Thank you, and thanks to Mr. O'Neill for raising the matter of the correspondence folder, because that indeed is why I'm here. And I was glad to hear that my email is in the correspondence folder this week. I did send it on Monday, September 25th, and I certainly expected that it would have been in the correspondence folder for the meeting 2 weeks ago, and I was disappointed that
Excuse
there
me,
was
Mr.
not.
Green, could you speak up a bit, please?
I was disappointed that there was nothing mentioned about it 2 weeks ago, so that's why I'm here today. But it's short, and I will read it. To the TRSD Budget Committee, Monday, September 25th. The final voted budget for 2017-18 does not appear to be posted on the TRSD website, and that is still the case. I did check again today. Last year, the final voted budget was posted at this location within the Budget Committee folder for 2016-17, and I give the web address within the district SharePoint where that file was posted last year. Can we expect that the same details for the 2017-18 budget will be posted or possibly have been already posted? Thanks for your attention to this matter. The people in this room will know, the people in public might not know, how important it is to have the final voted budget posted publicly with all the adjustments relative to the various warrant articles that were passed in the March election. If we want to do detailed year-by-year comparisons, before things start getting changed for encumbrances, we need the final voted budget. When I was on Budget Committee, that was typically posted in April, shortly after the election. Last year, it got posted at the end of August, and this year it has not been posted yet, to my knowledge.
I'd like to actually make a motion that we actually provide this information and actually have Mr. Guide as our school board representative, bring that back to the school board and make that as a formal request if it should pass here at this committee.
I second that. Okay. Any discussion?
So I'm going along with it. Why wouldn't we want to have this information out there?
We wouldn't. It's public information.
I understand, so,
Yeah.
so why isn't it then, I guess?
I quite frankly, I wasn't so sure what
Okay.
had been posted and what had not been posted. As I'm coming into the role,
Got it.
there's a little bit of trying to figure out. Now, I had been in a support capacity
Got it.
prior to
All right.
that.
All right, so I'm just trying to figure
There's a
out,
little bit of getting into the rhythm of what do we post.
I was just trying to understand any pros and cons, so,
No, there's
I get-
no con.
got it.
There's no con.
My question's answered.
Was this something you needed to do? No?
That I needed to?
Yeah, as the
Was it
chair.
something George used to
I
do?
mean,
No, last
George
year,
would be the man to
George
do it?
posted.
I would think so.
Yeah, so George, yeah.
I would
I
think
mean,
so.
I'm gonna guess that this is gonna be solved before it even hits the school board meeting, but,
Yeah.
I mean, but I'll bring it to them, but I'm sure it's gonna be solved by then.
Yeah.
know why it would take
I agree,
the school board to make that happen.
Yeah.
Seems like a no-brainer.
yeah.
I will tell you, this has also been brought to the attention of the school board chair, so it won't be news.
Yeah.
And if you will, if you want to look at the last year's budget season folder, you'll see that there's a folder within the season that says final voted budget. And that would be what one would expect to see posted.
Okay. Any other discussion on this?
And
You wanna,
I went looking for the same thing, same information this week, so I was gonna ask about it, when we
about
talked about the SharePoint.
about posting?
Yeah,
About the
well,
posting of of last year's budget?
yeah, because I went looking for it earlier this week and it wasn't there, so.
I can go in and see what the format is, what the form was that had been posted previously. It really is getting into just a routine of what was posted where, when, you know, and how. This is an annual thing, I mean.
Right. It's not
It's
something,
not.
I mean, I
It's-
personally thought it was, I mean, maybe because I had it in my hands, I don't know. But, yeah.
Okay?
Take a vote on this? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. What I'd like the committee to consider is a motion, I'd like to make is to move the new business item up forward to this point, rather than go through the other reports, so that our guests can do their presentations and then hang around. I make a motion on that. Is there a second?
Second all the way around.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Then we shall first, I guess, is the Sandown North presentation.
Thank you for having us this evening. My name is Joanne Georgian. I'm the principal of Sandown North. Two other elementary principals will be presenting this evening as well. Michelle Ogier from Pollard and Kathy Deotis from Atkinson Academy. And I introduce them to also say to you that as elementary principals, we work very closely together. And the budget process certainly is no exception. So what you'll hear and what you'll see in our budgets are lots of similarities because of the curriculums we're working with and the needs of our facilities. But you will see differences, and that, of course, is based on the needs within our own buildings in our own towns. So we'll all be speaking to requests for staff if we have them. Additionally, we'll be discussing the highlights, the changes, the increases and decreases on the line items. We won't be going through each and every line item, which I'm sure you're probably glad we won't be. So we'll just speak to the highlights. At Sandown North, as you know, we are continuing to grow. When I looked at the projected enrollments and looked at our historical trends, for next year, I really only increased the budget by 7 or 8 students. So I looked at the NESDEC, as I said, and I also looked at the trends of the students coming in. What happened, though, is the numbers of students at the different grade levels necessitated my asking for another teacher for grade 1. The number of students coming into grade 1 this year was 68. Next year, it's projected to be 81. Typically, at Sandown North, looking at, I think I looked at the last 7 years, we've increased the grade 1 enrollment over the K enrollment by somewhere between 12 and 17 students. So 12 or 17 students either were homeschooled, not schooled, private kindergarten schooled, so I went with a number of 15. And doing so does say that we will need 5 first-grade teachers instead of the 4 we currently have. At grade 3, we will be going from 61 to 78 students, which means we'll need an additional 3rd-grade teacher. However, our 5th grade leaving is a larger class than our incoming 5th grade. So it's simplistic to say a 5th grade teacher will teach 3rd grade, but in effect, it's sort of a wash. We'll make internal transfers and cover that. but the grade 1 will be, I am requesting an additional grade 1 teacher. Additionally, as I'm sure you've been hearing, our Title I funding for our federal funding has been decreasing. We had a decrease of $200,000 in Title I funding from 16-17 to this year, the 17-18 year. That does not affect just Sandown North. That affects Pollard, which is also a Title I school, as well as Danville Elementary School. And I believe Mrs. Barcelos is presenting to you in a couple of weeks. So our 3 schools have, the decrease is significantly impacting our ability to offer tiered interventions. We're losing staff. A number of tutors to support RTI has decreased, obviously because of the decrease in funding. The interventionists provide direct instruction. They work with specific targeted goals with these groups of students to bridge the gaps to help the children be more successful in their classrooms. So I'm asking for consideration to hire or to budget for an interventionist next year, somebody who would work not only with our struggling learners, but if this would be a district-funded position, they also would work with some of our accelerated students. As I said, the enrollment increased by 7, and I really believe I'm conservative in that. I'm frankly a little concerned that maybe I was too conservative, but I tried to be conservative. So therefore, my budget only increases by $2,247. So it's a minimal increase request for next year. The lines where there are some changes, the 1100-610-55 curriculum supply account, the amount of the increase, which is a little over $1,300, is primarily due to those 2 classes I've already referenced. We do need some language arts and math materials for those classrooms because we currently obviously don't have them. Just so you know, next year is the end of our 4-year contract with Pearson Math. So built into that contract has been all of our math consumables, our math journals. There are 2 journals for each student. Next year, this line will increase pretty significantly because we will be budgeting for those curriculum supplies in math at the building level. So it's kind of a year ahead heads up, but that line next year will be significantly larger than I think you'll see on any of our budgets this year. The 1100-640-25 account, I did increase it by $1,700. And again, those 2 classrooms, we will need some leveled books in there, some independent reading books, and mentor texts for instruction. So that difference is reflected there. The new equipment, 1100-733-25, is equipment and furniture. And we do need, obviously, the furniture for the 1st grade classroom. For the 3rd grade classroom, I only need chairs, because the 5th grade desks are adjustable, so we'll just lower them, but obviously we still need chairs that will allow the students to be positioned comfortably. The 1100-737 account, there's a decrease of $2,200, and frankly, we just don't need much replaced this year, so that was a savings. And the 2410-737 also was a decrease. That's non-classroom replacement equipment. That shows a $4,475 decrease. This year was the 2nd year of the replacing of cafeteria tables, which was a costly item. So that's done. We obviously didn't need that. All we really need next year is a laminator. Ours is sort of on its last legs. but still, that line item has been decreased by $4,475. And lastly, there on that sheet, the 26261001 is custodial and maintenance supplies. Our building is showing its age. We opened in 2001, and we're very fortunate to have a lead custodian who's very talented. And some of the little projects he's able to look at and say, I can do that. And increasingly, we're seeing that. And truthfully, because of the crowding, we've had to be pretty creative with some of our spaces, and he's helped us in doing that. So I wanted to have more money in that account as needed. The $10,000 CIP amount is for playground equipment that I had put in a couple of years ago, and that's on that plan. And lastly, for those of you who came on the tour and people I've spoken to, a very definite need that isn't on a budget that I budget for, but that Mr. Gary will be speaking to, is a need for adult bathrooms at Sandown North. We have a staff of 74, and we have 2 designated adult bathrooms. So, as you know, teachers are on a really tight schedule. There are lines forming, no, you go first, you only have 3 minutes left. It's something that definitely is needed. So I wanted to bring it up as the principal of the building, but Mr. Gary will be speaking to it when he presents his budget. That's it in a nutshell.
Any questions? Yes.
Can you just go over the one for, I believe it was,
Furniture for the classroom.
Yeah, new-
First grade?
yes, new equipment for the furniture?
Yes,
So that's the one that's 2453.
yes.
So just explain it again, so the enrollment's really not changing that much as a overall. You're shifting inside. So the desk can't be moved, is it because of the age of the students?
This is actually an additional classroom. I'm moving the grade 5 desks to grade 3.
Right?
So we don't need any, we do need chairs there, but that's it. But this additional first grade classroom, we have no more furniture. This is an additional classroom.
But you have the same amount of students,
What's happening is that the number of students coming in, you have to look at it grade level wise and class size.
Okay, right.
So grade 1 is 20, current Timberlane policy is 20 students per classroom. So that's why we had this year we have 68 students, but next year having 81 at that grade level means that we need an additional teacher at that grade level. Whereas the grade 5 leaving is large, we save. And, one teacher, one classroom is not needed. So that teacher will go to where, again, grade 3 is larger. But, again, it's simplistic to say I'll take this teacher and put them there. But in effect, that's what would happen. But grade 1 is another classroom.
So those 68 students would represent 4 classrooms, where next year's 82 represents 5 classrooms?
Yes.
Any other questions? Yes.
I had a couple questions, I was just curious, do you have room for another classroom up there?
It's getting really tricky. As you probably know, this year we gave up the technology lab, and honestly, it's working really well. The tech teacher is working in the classroom, so it's very authentic learning as needed in the classrooms. Next year, though, we would probably, and I haven't sat down to make a definite decision with staff, but it looks like it would either be the art room or the music room. Last year we had said probably the art room. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Couple other things. Do you have the kindergarten projected numbers, what they are this year and what they should be next year?
Yes, well, I don't know what their numbers projected next year are for kindergarten, but Jen and I, Mrs. Marino and I have spoken in I took her numbers, the currently existing 66 students at Central. plus the 15 to
Okay.
come up with the 81. And as I said, typically it's been 12 to 17. It's hard to know exactly.
Okay. Another thing, the interventionist that you'd like to hire, is that strictly just for your school, or is that for Pollard and Danville, someone that would be going between schools?
No, I'm requesting for our school, but I think you'll hear similar requests from the other principals.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Yes.
I'm gonna dig into the weeds a little bit.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's, it's hard, you look at a budget, it's up only $2,000, it's hard, but when you're looking at the big picture, I wanna dig and scrape wherever we can. Looking at the detail, you have a copy of that?
I do.
Page 2, bottom of the page, student transportation, 519, so it's 2725.519. Just looking at the historic trend, and maybe this has to do with the new contract. 2016 was 2,900 actual expended. 2017 was 2,762 actual expended to a budget of 2,800. This past year, it's 3,600. We're going to 3,630. Do we know where we're targeting to spend this year on transportation for that category?
We're looking at field trip expenses, correct?
Yes.
Every grade takes a field trip. What happens is that our PTA is very generous, so there are times where they often do help fund these field trips, but it's not something we can always count on depending on their revenue. So we do budget for, and again, if sometimes a PTA is able to fund more of it, we may not expend as much as we've budgeted. But I do budget so that they can do that in the event that the revenue isn't there from the PTA.
Okay. Page 5. It's another question along the same lines. It's going to be under 262610, custodial maintenance supplies. So 2016 was 1,200, 2017 was only 700. We're looking at a budget of 2,640 going up to 5,250. So we've been way underspent there, and I think this ties to the last section on your justification form. Tell me a little bit, can you just talk a little bit more about it?
With the crowding is coming some additional needs to create some areas that maybe are a little bit more private, or a privacy, well, the privacy screen wouldn't be here, that would be somewhere else. I'm trying to think of what we did this year. There's been some additional fixing of areas and then quick painting. So I wanted to be sure that the crowding looks like it's not going away anytime soon. We may not need that amount, but we may. I don't know exactly what's going to happen next year. If you look at our library, the district has put up the walls for us. But even within there, we were looking at, geez, we have 4 people in that small space, should we be doing something? And then when we do something, there are cracks in a wall, and Zig Mr. Pasco is very talented and handy and very willing to do it. So I kind of put it there for those sorts of things.
And then, last one, I promise.
That's fine.
Bottom of page 8, and, yeah, it's the bottom of page 8. So 1100.810, dues, general elementary. Looks like we continue to budget 750, but I don't see that we've spent it.
Right, I agree. I've been holding that there we haven't been doing some of the, like, Destination Imagination, but throughout the district, we're hoping to. So we all talked about, let's keep that there, and I did speak with Dr. Metzler about it as well, in the hopes that we can get involved in something to extend our students' learning. So our enrichment teachers are looking at those opportunities as well, and we really weren't sure what the dues might be.
So what's been the constraint from not doing? Has it just been resource availability?
It's been parents who've wanted to do it, or staff members to coach it. So that's been probably the roadblock.
So
But it's
just needing
certainly,
someone to step up.
yeah, it's certainly being encouraged,
Thank you.
sure.
Any other questions? Yes.
I just have one other question. On the additional playground equipment of 10,000, is that in one of your line items? I'm trying to figure out why
You know,
that
that's-
is not included
Oh, it's in
as
CIP.
total increase or decrease of your budget.
So it's not in the budget sheets you see in front of you. We had debated whether to list that at a district level with each individual budget building owner, if you will, speaking to them. As a general proposition, most of the facility type improvements are going to be at the facilities level, and the facilities group will speak to those directly. However, I think that we've treated it both ways in the past. For Atkinson, you'll see that that is in their budget, and I will put that request in the building level budget, because that to me seems to make more sense to have in that building level budget. So we may have some budget owners who are speaking to CIP requests that may be on a facility schedule, but we want to understand the need as well. And in this case, it should be in there. So I'm gonna add that to your school's building locally, and I can distribute
Okay.
another copy next week. That's something that really is not specific in, building improvement, or that's very specific to the educational program there.
Right.
And upon further consideration, I think that we had a little bit of a split in the past as to where they went. I thought this year it'd be better to have it there, and I think Atkinson ended up there, you didn't, and Atkinson ended up there, and I pulled it out, because they advanced the work. So that'll be something that will be going in, but I have asked our budget owners to speak, even if something does not appear on their budget, if it's a facilities project, to speak to the need. So for example, the bathroom is not going to be, that's a general facilities renovation.
Okay.
But I've still asked her to speak to the need to it, but you're right, and that will be on here, so I'll get you a revised copy.
Okay.
And in fact, we had talked earlier about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
I have a question, if I might. Was this playground equipment, was that in your CIP for this year?
I requested it, I believe, 2 years ago, and it will be
Did
in
it
it.
get
It's on this
carried
year.
over?
It's on.
It's on this year, right now.
It's on this year,
What's the amount?
okay. That's what I did, I didn't remember seeing it, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
I actually have another
Oh,
question, sorry.
okay.
Feeding right off of that very thing, just really for confirmation, I believe my understanding is, for the playground equipment, that's being driven by a urgent, critical safety concern with regard to the equipment that exists there now, correct?
I can't say that is true at Sandown North. It was additional equipment. When we got older students, we did not purchase additional equipment. When I requested it 2 years ago, that was our thought as a staff, that we needed to be considering our older students. So I can't say that it's a critical safety issue for us at this point. Primex, we are requesting to have them come out and take a look. We haven't done that yet at our existing. I mean, there are pieces we've removed. We have removed, I believe, 3 smaller pieces through the years that we saw had broken or rusted or clearly unsafe. But when I put in the request for this equipment, it was to meet the needs of our older students
For the
as
older
well.
students. So it's an age adjustment
Yes.
primarily is the driver here.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate the clarification.
Yes.
I just have one more question on the playground equipment. Are there any PTA contributions or anything as part of this proposal of?
There probably will be. We looked at just a minimal amount to request here. The current playground that we have was 100% PTA funded. but the PTA is fabulous and they do a lot of work, but the revenue, it's tricky again in Sandown because we have 2 schools that PTA supports. So it's, the money isn't, it's more difficult. We try to be fair on the needs at both schools. So it's a little tighter and harder to fund, but they're highly supportive. And when we looked at this, we said, well, let's look at what we can request from the district, because we have never, since the opening of the building, requested any money for the playground. It was all PTA funded. And then there was actually other equipment we were looking at to speak to the PTA about. Playground equipment, as you know, is very expensive.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to take this budget from,
Under consideration.
under consideration.
I'll make that motion. Motion to accept the Sandown North proposed budget under consideration for the 2018-19 year.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion?
Well, note that that I will put that 10,000 in the budget, so that all the budget for the buildings with respect to playgrounds are uniform.
Okay,
So that'll be the only thing that'll change, and if that's okay.
okay.
With-
Any other
with that,
questions?
do we-
Yes.
We have the CIP dollar amount in here for the playground. Didn't the school board have to turn around and they were gonna have to vet all CIP for this coming budget year?
This budget year that we're in right now, the one that we're budgeting for,
The one we're budgeting for, the school board was going to.
we've gone through some of it already. It's a living document. Like, I didn't get to my report, so I can't, but stuff's been discussed. Some things have been moved up. Some is, we found an error. It's a living document. I don't know how else to put it to that. As far as the vetting thing goes, we have three people coming to talk to us next meeting.
I believe so.
Is it 3? So, I mean, we're not done with it, I guess, yet.
So if you see
So we would be accepting this budget with the
Just-
CIP, as.
We're not accepting the budget. All we're doing is taking it under advisement.
Okay.
And we'll be talking about it again, and at that point, we will make a vote on accepting or modifying and accepting.
Okay.
So-
I understand what we're gonna be voting for.
my impression was, as what we spoke about, was that the budgets would be presented during the week that they're scheduled to be presented. Comments, considerations, all of that, and then take the next meeting, until the next meeting, to
That's correct.
discuss it.
So-
And then I believe it would be under other business.
That's correct.
Go through and address anything that may have come back
And
during.
so
that
we'll
time.
have, that's when we'll do the second vote on making adjustments and
Get feedback from the community.
whatever. Give you a chance to look at the numbers, listen to the presentation, and then next week we'll vote again to accept it as written or make adjustments.
In no way do I expect that the CIP plan, as presented, is going to be what is recommended by the school board, and I don't expect that the school board is going to agree with the way that it's recommended by the budget committee. What we've done in the past, just as practice, and if you look at the Atkinson, I'll show you how we treated in the Atkinson report on page 7. I list the CIP requests, so anything that has gone in through CIP as recommended, I put right into the budget. Because we all want to know where it is and have visibility on it. So on page 7, on the Atkinson actual object report, and this is going to be the case with anything that's in there. In that instance, that was approved or made part of the CIP committee's final report. It goes in the budget. In that instance, the school committee did take action to the extent that they said, fund it this year. So I always include these in the budget and then credit it out so we know how it's been disposed. So in this case, it's in there. They did take action. They moved it forward to the current budget year. It's still in CIP. I want everyone to have visibility. It's there. It's been removed by the school board to the extent that there's no project to do next year if it's done this year. I think that the school board, I would think, would be going through that CIP, they will share their thoughts and recommendations with this board, and this board will have other thoughts and recommendations. Ultimately, this board owns the budget. This board owns what goes into this budget from CIP. In this case, in instances, the school board may say, well, we don't want that in the budget. We don't want that CIP item in the budget. That's still up to this board. The problem with this request is there'll be nothing to put in next year. So if this board decided, hey, we want to take that out, well, then I update our reports and I show the negative to reflect that. So just from a procedural perspective, we know exactly where they, that they got in, they're marked as such, and if you guys accept this budget or some budget in total the week after, at the end of the budget process, you're still gonna come in and say, you know what, we wanna trim that, we wanna cut it, we wanna put it as warrant, great, I'll go in and negative out, but we've gotta see it, know where it is, to be able to take it, you guys to take action on it at a later point.
So as far as vetting goes, I guess the CIP is the CIP. This is it. The school board can go through, we can remove, pick and choose, do all that stuff, but when it comes down to it, the budget committee can say, no, we want to do the playground at Sandown North and it's going back in, and that's it. That's how that works.
Conversely, we could also have the school board wanting to put something in this, but committee can turn around and say no.
Absolutely. The school board can put something in and we can say, no, we're not gonna do that. But that being said, that's what I mean by, the school board can recommend to take that off of the CIP or bump it back a year, which was done twice now, I think. And then this board can say, no, we're gonna keep it in this year. So, as far as vetting goes, I mean, it's, like I said, we accepted the list already, and now it's just gonna be a fluid document. I'm sure it's gonna go back and forth. I mean, remember, I had a discussion that we were trying to get, it almost has to be updated weekly. You know what I mean? Lines through it and everything else. I don't know how else to do it, but.
So the best way that I'm looking at it is if it's on the CIP document, that document, if you will, that's as recommended by the CIP committee, that's what everyone's working off of.
Right.
It'll go into the budget, and if it comes right out, it'll go in and come right out.
Right.
And if it goes in and is voted subsequently by the budget committee not to be in the final budget, you'll see it and it'll be credited out.
Right.
Everything that we have for year one should be tracked.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay, we're taking this Sandown North budget under advisement. That's the motion. Are there any discussions on that? Okay. We'll take a vote. All in favor of yes.
Sorry. Could you just read back what the actual motion is for us?
I had Dan Guide making a motion to accept the proposal of Sandown North's budget.
Under advisement.
Under advisement.
Under advisement. Take it under advisement.
So, motion to take the budget under advisement.
That's correct. Okay. Clear? Okay. Any other issues? Okay, let's vote. All in favor, say, raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So just to clarify for me, at next week's meeting, we will revisit this budget for
correct.
final consideration.
That's correct.
I think it's a little different than what we did last year.
Yeah, and I like this approach. I think it
We don't have
gives you
to,
some time to digest
Not so far out.
exactly that it's forgotten. You lose the ability, Ms. George is not gonna wanna come back, and if we have questions, that's.
I agree.
Okay, the next, I think, is Pollard?
Yeah, Michelle Ogier, and Brian Shawley's here as my assistant principal, one of them, and so I thought I'd invite him up, I hope you don't mind. He might have something great to say. So, I think Joanne did a great job of summarizing many of the things that I was going to talk about, so I'm just going to summarize again for you in regards to some of the needs, the interventionists that Sandown North needs, that's also a need at Pollard School. Right now, Pollard School is a Title I school. Last year, we had 4 Title I tutors working RTI, response to intervention, or instruction, whichever you want to say it, working with our students K through 5. And this year, due to budget cuts from the state level, we have 2. So we've been cut in half, and that has already hurt us dramatically. I think that Pollard had really grown this past year with the 4 tutors and really being able to focus on our curriculum. And we've already seen that gap. So we would like to be able to put the interventionist into our budget. So one of the other things that Joanne talked about was student numbers, and her kindergarten to first grade numbers are very similar to Pollard's. Because we're in Plastow, we do have a couple of places that children go to kindergarten, so our first grade numbers often increase somewhere between 10 and 15. So currently, you would have seen 466 as our number as of October 1st, so that was our enrollment. Already, our enrollment is 472 at Pollard from October 1st. And I'm estimating that our enrollment for next year is going to be 487. I had a smaller 5th grade this year, and I have a larger 4th grade moving up, so I cut my 5th grade down to 3 teachers for this school year, and I need to go back up to 4 teachers. And my other grades will all be pretty much the same. Like I have to move one teacher from one grade to another. But every once in a while, you get a class size that's a little bit smaller. So our 5th grade this year is a small class. Generally speaking, we run somewhere between 75 and 85 students in a class. And that class that's right now in 5th grade is at 74. And we can have 26 in a classroom in 5th grade, so 3 was all we needed. Next year, we need the 4 classrooms again. So we had a teacher, luck would have it, we had a teacher on maternity for the year, so it was a smooth, nobody had to leave kind of a thing. So we would like to move that position back into Pollard, into our 5th grade. Those are our 2 positions, if you will. So let's see. I'm going to go just to the budget lines next. So our current year budget was $128,157, and our proposed budget for next year is $135,176. That's an increase of a little bit over $7,000, and I'll explain that. I have many lines that are the same or less, but I do have one area of need. So that first line that I wanted to talk about was our increase of $1,473 in the 1100-737, that's replacement equipment. And what I have done, it's taken 9 years, I'm trying to replace the old furniture in 4th and 5th grade at Pollard and getting furniture that actually is working and safe. And so we are down to the last 2 classrooms. I have done away with these tables that have like a little draw underneath. They fall and they break, and there's no place to put children's materials. And so the desks that we've been getting it's a double desk. Similar desk that you probably all had as students, a desk that just has a hole that you put books in. This is the same thing but double. So it serves as a table. We do a lot of group work and problem solving, things like that, as not individual, it's more partner or smaller groups. So this has been helpful. So unfortunately, those prices have increased this past year. We had to get less desks based on last year's, what I thought I could purchase. I was only able to get I missed 1 desk, so 2 kids don't have the same desks in each of those rooms. So I had to increase the budget that amount. The second was a decrease, and that was in one of our library accounts, and that is the information access account, and the decrease of $1,157. And it was a ImageQuest database that the librarians chose not to use again this year. So it is not going to be on the budget at all. The third account is sort of the big one at Pollard. So we have been trying to figure out some issues with elevators and safety and whatnot, and I really had no great plan. If we had a true fire emergency in the 4th and 5th grade area, we have stairs, you can't use an elevator during a fire. And if a child has crutches or an adult has crutches or is unable to get down the stairs, then someone's carrying them or they're going on their butt all the way down, so to speak. I spoke with the fire chief and he suggested I look into evacuation chairs. We looked, Tom Gary worked with me on this and we found the Stryker evacuation chair that basically you can sit somebody right on the chair and it just folds up in a case, but then it just goes down and it has, what do you call those?
Like a guide rail on
Yeah,
the side.
and it just rolls right
Rolls.
down the stairs, but it's able to be held and safely bring it down, doesn't whip someone down. I bring this year. It's more of a concern because I will have at least one student with a physical disability that is a permanent, something permanent. Right now, I have 2 kids with crutches up in 5th grade, and they use the elevator every day to go for special or lunch or recess. But during a fire drill, thank goodness that they are very agile children and they sort of bounce down the stairs. But that would not be the case.
Safely.
Yeah, very safely. You know, on one foot, I couldn't do it. But, yeah. But the Stryker chair is something that Chief McCardle thinks is a great idea. Ultimately, to have a Stryker chair at either end of, because I have more than one stairway. But for me, the central stairway is the one we use most often and the one that I think would be the best place for it. So that line was just short of $4,600 to get the chair and the case. And then the other item.
Michelle, I'm gonna stop you right there.
Oh, okay.
I
You got
had
the video?
no idea what in the world you were talking about previously. And so I just wanted to show this,
Yeah, I can see. Okay.
I don't know if you might have some familiarity. We only have this issue really in one of our buildings, and it's your building. We have multiple level buildings, but all of our other buildings have egress directly out at some level. Like Atkinson is multi-level, but it has egress at every level. So I said, how does this thing work?
This is the same chair that is carried on the ambulances for the fire departments and Trinity Ambulance to bring anybody out from a non-first floor.
Hmm?
And so I actually, the chief came today and showed how quickly, and it's heavy, but I was able to pick it up and I was able to open it myself because that would be a concern. I mean, if it was too difficult for a teacher or a paraeducator, somebody to assist. But it's there and he has one. It's on his, all of his trucks, I think.
Yeah.
And what he said was, yeah, I have one, but the goal would be for you to get your people out so I can deal with the fire. So, and to get out in a timely manner. I mean, the deal with what we would have to do is if somebody couldn't get out, they would have to be at a marked room that we would be able to put something up on a window and say like, I'm in here and I can't get down. So that way the fire men would know where to go. This will make that a little bit easier.
So, thank you.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad you took it out.
It made a lot of sense when I saw it. So, Dan, could you grab the light? Thank you. And that does fold up into a.
It folds up and part of that amount of money is to put a case right near the stairway so kids aren't touching the actual chair. It's cased off, but it's easily clipped open and pulled out. So safety so it actually will not be tampered with when it's not in use.
So it folds out, there's straps with clips to secure the person in the chair. One person could get them down the stairs. It's better with two, but if you have, so you just have to have some training.
Right.
And, it's a good, I mean, we use them all the time on the fire departments and the ambulances, so. They're,
One concern that I had is how many people do we have available to assist in this, and it looked like the recommendation is over 200 pounds would be a two-person, and, for the students who were in there's a strong proposition, it would be training and probably one person assigned to make sure that evacuation would be
yeah,
successful.
it's always better to have two, just in case.
Front and back.
Yeah, just in case, I mean, you are maneuvering somebody down. If you lose grip or anything like that, the other person has control as well.
And I did actually get a letter from the fire chief. If anyone wanted, I can pass a copy around.
Is there been any accommodations to accommodate the student in special needs such that that child would have preferential treatment for first floor access?
I think that's a really good question, and we actually
Because
talked about it.
If I can expand on my thought process, is that, at least from my, as a layman's viewpoint, this is a good solution for having something that's on the second floor, but it will never be safer, at least in my viewpoint, than being on the first floor, because you still have to get this child down to the first floor to exit. So if the child was on the first floor, it would be a quicker exit from the building. So I mean, that's just my thought process on this.
Okay, I can, if I can elaborate. I would say, first and foremost, that my fourth and fifth grade are upstairs and have been the whole, at least 12 of the 13 years I've been here. If I move my fourth grade now, I'm definitely pointing that out why I'm doing it. Then I'll be moving the fifth grade down, because I don't have any extra rooms that I can just stick, and I wouldn't put one grade, that would even be worse. But as in the letter from the chief of the fire department, what I think is really, it's not just about that one child, it's about many children and adults. I actually have two adults right now that have a difficult time going up and down the stairs because they need surgery on their knee. So if they had surgery on their knee and they're up in that top floor working, I need to be able to get them down. It's my obligation as well, just as safely. I can't continually move classrooms around as people are injured or whatever. I don't have enough rooms to do.
No, I would agree that the injuring aspect is, you like to say that that's at least a temporary thing to have an injury. I mean, it seems like this child is, is more a permanent thing which needs, so it's been a multi-year issue that you've had to address.
Well, I only have fourth and fifth grade upstairs, so it has not been a concern as of yet.
Okay.
Is that what you mean?
All right, so, I mean, I didn't know how you configure the classrooms. I mean, if you move them around at
Well,
a point.
I can only put third, fourth, or fifth grade upstairs with the stairway.
But at the same time, I mean, it could be, next year, it could be, you move first grade up there, say you did, it could be a first grader that needed it. You know what I mean? The point is, I guess, is that it's on the second floor, and that's why it's needed there.
Right. But, at Pollard, we have 2 floors. Actually, we have 4 floors. We could get into that, anyone who came to our walkthrough. We have many floors with different numbers. It's kind of an odd
So,
situation.
but to Sean, I had the exact same question, Sean. I think it's a great question, and what it was not the permanent, or not the student who's in a bad way on a permanent basis. It's more the temporaries. The kid who's breaks his leg and has a full leg cast, or something. And there were some, he could go tumbling down the stairs, or find a more appropriate solution if he's riding the elevator coming up, or in a wheelchair on a temporary basis. And that was because I had the exact same question. And it seemed the temporary was the issue more than the permanent.
Right. But I think it's my obligation, no matter what, it's all of ours, to be able to safely get somebody downstairs in case of fire. That's why we do fire drills.
Any questions?
Yeah, I actually do, sorry. So the amount shown here is $7,180.
Oh, I didn't finish.
Okay, because that's why I was confused, because it said down here that the chair and the storage cabinet was a 4780.
Right, 4780 was the chair and the storage cabinet, but I also have another 2,000 and plus shipping for a cafeteria table, because my kindergarten and first grade eat lunch together, and I have enough seats with the tables I have for the students. However, in kindergarten and first grade, many of the children, everyone in kindergarten and many in the first grade are very new to each other. And in first, second, and third, fourth, and fifth grade, they can have freedom days where they can sit wherever. They have friends in other classes. In kindergarten and first grade, their classroom are their world, really, in at the elementary level. That's where their friends are. And the first day of school, and Mr. Shawley was there, it was awful. The kids were, with the first graders all sit down, and they're all at their tables, they all sit by classroom. And then the first kindergarten comes, and we're like, oh no, we only have one table left. So the last class and a half of kindergarten, teachers on duty had to say, I have a seat here. So now I'm putting a kindergarten kid who's never had a lunch ever at Pollard School, sitting them down next to people they've never seen before. And it broke everybody's heart in the entire room. And so I emailed around, and actually Mrs. Marino emailed back saying that she had a cafeteria table that they weren't using, and so Mr. Shawley drove over and got it. So that next day, we had enough classrooms that the children could sit in their rooms together. So I would like to be able to keep the table that I borrowed. However, that table technically is unsafe. It has some things sticking out of it. We have taped in yellow, orange, and green tape all over it, but it needs to be, it was one of the tables that we're not supposed to use anymore. It absolutely is working, and we use it just for that group, but, so that was the last amount. Thank you.
What was the cost of the table?
The cost of the table,
2,400.
I'll just look, was 2,400, but that includes the shipping part.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on concerns about the, I make a motion that we accept this budget request under advisement.
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? Okay, let's vote. All in favor of taking this budget request under advisement? Opposed? Abstain? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
They're all throwing my schedule here off. Everyone's throwing my schedule off, Mrs. Marino. I had scheduled about 15 minutes per presenter. I know you have a lot as well. We're on time, except we skipped most of the agenda, so.
I can keep it concise. Okay, just to introduce myself, I'm Jen Marino. I'm the new principal at Sandown Central. And I wanted to go over, to piggyback on my colleagues, we too have, for our intervention need, we had a part-time interventionist the past few years at the school, and in our third year, we do not have that because of budget cuts. So I have nobody to do our small group instruction. We also put in for a 0.5 or a half-time library media specialist, because our hope is to have our library working. Our students desperately want to be able to check out books, and they're not able to do that right now. We have a library, but it's not working. So that's our hope for this year, is to get that up and running. Currently, our current enrollment, we have 161 students. We have 94 pre-K and 67 kindergarten. And our anticipated enrollment, we've seen a projected growth between pre-K and K at about 35, 36. So we're going, so our numbers are based on the 196. So you see that our current budget is 36,704, and our proposed budget is 62,821.98. And so that is an increase of 26 $117.98. The basis of that is two main reasons. Our enrollment has increased, and also age-appropriate equipment. As Michelle was sharing, at some of our tables, they kind of laugh sometimes at our equipment and our furniture because they call it the land of misfit toys, because the majority of it is suited for a 4th and 5th grade student, because that's who was there before. So the majority of my budget is to get our furniture at least age-appropriate. So in our first increase, we also put in for computer lab furniture, because our computer lab is for, again, 4th and 5th grade. So our students literally sit there and their feet dangle and they can hardly reach the keyboard. So we've had, looking into that. We have a new kindergarten. Our half-day kindergarten does not have chairs, matching chairs, so we're kind of pulled from different classrooms. So we're trying to get her some student chairs. And also with our growth, just some file cabinets, kidney tables, and just other small classroom furniture. The next line item, the increase for that, is we're looking to get, again, our chairs in the library are more appropriate for middle school, even high school students. We use them for our staff meetings. So for 24 chairs, that's the 3,130. And again, it would be for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. And the new line item, our biggest increase would be the $6,700, and that's for the playground equipment. And what that is, it's called a tot wall. It's for 2 to 5-year-olds. And what it is, it looks like an S shape, and it's a small, like, climbing wall. We have one piece of playground equipment, and we have swings. The swings were there from the 4th and 5th grade students. We do not have enough playground equipment for the kids to go on. Now with an extra full day K, they're going outside, and they're all kind of huddled on one little piece of equipment. We are working to try and get the swings more age appropriate, and I also had our wonderful custodians. I had a dream about building just like a sandbox, thinking of how it was when I grew up. I loved a sandbox, so we have some wood, so we have at least 10 students that are able to play in that. So we're just trying to think of ways that the students can keep that play outdoors. Let's see. Our next increase, again, is due to enrollment. It went up by almost 8,000 just because of materials, pens, markers, pencils, everything with our population growing, which is a wonderful thing.
Can I stop you for just 1 second?
Sure.
You'll note on the summary sheet that it is showing as it is in parentheses, so one will get the impression that it's a decrease, it's an increase. It does match the schedule as an increase.
Yes.
I think it's important, you have an increase in your current year enrollment of 161. I believe your current actual enrollment, that's an October 1st figure, your actual enrollment, is that higher than that right now?
We're at 161 right now.
161 right now.
What is the breakdown? You said it so fast, I didn't see it.
Oh, sorry.
So for next year, for the 196, what's the breakdown?
We had last year and the year before, we've had an increase in preschool of 36 students, and then we've also last year had an increase in 17 kindergarten. So we will not have another full day kindergarten. So we predicted that we would have conservatively at least 30 preschoolers and adding that 5 for kindergarten for next year. So that's an increase to the 196.
But what was your budget estimate for enrollment? Not yours, but that's.
Last year, it was 130.
So your previous year budget was put together.
At 130.
130.
And currently, we're at 161. And we know, projected, we know by February, we have 10 new preschoolers coming already. And how we know that is when they're 2, they know when they turn 3, they can come to school.
So you'll be at 171 before the end of the year.
By the beginning of the year, yeah, by January. So we're happy, we're growing, but I just have to make sure we're prepared.
Thank you.
The next few line items are also due to the increase in enrollment. So curriculum supplies, elementary supplies. For the library books, that has been increased because we've been inventorying our books and realized the majority of them are chapter books for more 4th and 5th grade students. So we're looking to get library books, again, to have the library up and running. The field trip, again, we do that based on per student enrollment. We actually don't really do many field trips. We tend to do, I call them in-trips, where we have systems come in. So we have an owl presentation that comes in with live owls, and they talk about the life cycle. And we also are looking into a planetarium, which would be, it's a gigantic dome, and the students can crawl in their socks and lay down, and then it just tells them about the solar system and the planets. So that's what we're looking to do this year. And the one item that did decrease was the new equipment, and that was because we have a higher need for more replacement equipment right now.
So you have 4 items altogether on the CIP for your building.
Yes.
2 of them, though, are going to be really facilities only. If you could speak to your, the request for signage and restroom renovations, those
Sure.
are, and help the committee identify the need.
Sure. If you've ever driven by our school, you will see a, basically almost a masking tape nails sticking out of it. That's our school sign. It is so old that we can't keep the letters on it. So we were looking to get new signage to put actually in the front where the entrance is of the building so that people could see it when they come in. For the restroom renovations, I know on our tour, I took everybody into the bathrooms just to see. Unfortunately, again, some of, the example in the boys' bathroom, they have a stool because the urinals are too high, so which is not extremely safe. So we're looking to get that renovation to move everything to their level.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns? Yes, ma'am.
I just had a question, I'm sorry, on the enrollment. So
Sure.
you had said that this year there's 161 total students, 94 pre-K and 67 kindergarten?
Correct.
And you're looking at next year, those pre-K will be, assuming kindergartners, are you going to need additional staff? Another classroom? what is? the
Some of our
requirement?
pre-Ks are from other towns, so they would go to their neighborhood kindergarten.
Okay. So you wouldn't need additional staff?
Unless our numbers go, higher for Sandown kindergarten, then we would. But right now, we've done very well. We're actually at capacity for our 2 half-days, our AM and PM, and we are at 17 for our full days.
And how many is allowed for?
20.
20.
School board policy is 20 for kindergarten.
So if you just have 3 more students, you'll need another teacher?
Well, if it's full day, I'm able to take 6. Because we would have 3 in each room.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Motion to accept the proposed proposal.
Under advisement?
Yeah, under advisement.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor of accepting this under advisement, taking this under advisement? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. Atkinson Academy.
I am Kathy J. Otis from Atkinson Academy, and I'm going to speak a little bit about the interventionists, but at this point, I'm sure you're ready to have us each have one at this point, because we've spoken about it. So, I'm asking for another one. And I will explain to you that I am not a Title I school. I do not have any tutors that I can lose because I've never had any. So last year, 2 years ago, you did give me a position for an interventionist. And last year, I put another request for an interventionist, and I know that I did not get it, so I'm going to ask again for another interventionist for my upper grades to support learning. As I said, I am not a Title I school. I do not have any tutors at all. So we really need them to continue on to help our students have an intervention to kind of give a little extra help. I feel personally that by having the interventionist that we have, who is excellent, but she can only do so many classes a day, and we've grown leaps and bounds. And I think that personally, we've kept a lot of children off the special education rules because sometimes kids just need that little extra push. It's not that they need special education, but sometimes they may be put in that section. So I would ask for the interventionist for the academy again. Okay, so, with that said, my current budget this year is $96,281.50. And my proposed budget is $93,759. And that is a decrease of $2,500. And I will, last year it was based on about 330 students. I ended up this year with 349 students is the current enrollment. I anticipate, I figured NASDAQ says 399. I don't think that we're going to have that many, but I anticipated about 360, which is about 11 or 12 more students, which typically has been the increase every year, except for this past year, which kind of surprised me. But I guess a lot of people, the market was good, and a lot of people sold and bought houses. So I would like an increase of my general supplies based on that enrollment, projected enrollment figure of $4,535. My 1100-640-25 account, which is books, I have increased that $1,800, mainly because the school classroom libraries are getting old, the books are getting worn, and if you go into Barnes & Noble, even with a discount, and I certainly hunt around for all the discounts I can get, a picture book is at least $20. So that really, $200 a classroom is about 10 books. So that's not enough, and every year I could increase that. My in-service building, I had a decrease of $1,000.
I just have a question on
Yeah.
that one, sorry to interrupt. you.
Okay, no, that's fine.
So I see it on the details, an increase,
Which line?
second line.
Did I miss it?
It says increase as well in the header.
Wait a minute. Let me look on mine. I think it was an increase.
I like decrease better.
You like decrease? Okay, we'll decrease. We'll decrease. That's fine.
It's decreased overall. She should
It is
we should have a trophy. We have a
I
trophy.
have a decrease overall. I was really good this year. The replacement equipment, I think Mr. Dowd spoke about that, how I had 12,000 in because of my playground equipment, but it was very well appreciated that at last school board meeting, they voted to give me the 12,000 from the CPI in this year's budget. And my PTA and Night Owls group will be coming next Thursday night, I believe, for a public hearing to give 20,000 to go towards the playground, and that will finish. I won't ask you anymore for any more playground equipment. It should be good for at least the next 20 years. The other increase is the 2620 account, which is the custodial maintenance supplies. And I believe Joanne Georgian spoke of that. It's just the little things. I have an excellent custodial crew this year, and they were able to do a lot of little things that we can get done. I know they were fixing our screens that were broken and rescreening them. They put wheels on some of the bookcases that I bought so that they can easily be moved instead of having the teachers having to unload them and put them into boxes at the end of the year. So, and then for them to move the bookcases out into the hall. It's just so much easier for them to wheel it, so we have that. Small stools for some of the children that need them. I have a couple of handicapped students that need special stools for to wash their hands and things in the bathroom. And the other thing is some shades for some of the windows, and they just need them in the classrooms because the sun comes in on one side, so I put in for that. And they're all things that my custodial staff can do if they have the equipment. And that's,
We had budgeted for shades last year, right?
yeah, but we didn't get them.
Didn't get them, okay.
No.
There was some amount in the budget.
I
for
mean, one
them.
of the, we didn't get them at my school.
No,
Yeah,
yeah, it was a district thing.
It was, and
It wasn't enough to cover everything.
wasn't enough to cover one school.
Right, because it had to be flame retardant.
Right.
Because I remember that discussion.
Because it's twofold reason why we wanted curtains, right? Flame retardant was one, you know what the other one was, so that's why we were trying to do it district-wide, but not nearly enough money to do it with, so.
Any questions? Yes,
I just had two things. Well, one regarding the shades. Last year, it was because there were some that were not fire retardant. Those were the ones that we did end up having replaced. But I just had a general question for any of the administrators that are here. If someone could kind of clarify who provides this Title I funding for these interventionists? Like, is this coming from the state? And is there any way to try and request getting additional funding? Like, is there something that we can do to try and get you guys more money for this?
Would you mind
Is
if?
this just a...
Mrs. Michaud would probably be able to.
I do the project management for both the Title I and our Title II grants. The Title I grant is federal dollars, and it's based on the percentage of free and reduced lunch counts. It's combined, that calculation is combined at the federal level, free and reduced percentages, as well as information that comes from the Census Bureau. And so what happens is that federal money is brought to the state, and then the state allocates out to the towns, or to the school districts, I'm sorry. And then from there, we actually set criteria to execute our grant. And so initially, the money is granted based on free and reduced lunch counts. That's how your money is brought to your school district. But after that, it's based on other criteria that you set. And so for us, it's we've set our allocation in our district to be for early intervention in our elementary schools, and really looking at early literacy, early numeracy, supporting struggling learners, disadvantaged students in whatever way. It doesn't have to be any of. It's not part of the criteria for receiving services once the money comes to the school level. Has nothing to do with free and reduced. It has to do with meeting other criteria, mostly around academic support.
But this is a general trend.
We don't have enough free and reduced school lunches, we don't get the same amount of money.
That's right, yes.
So the need
school
is going-
districts that get, so you have communities that have very high numbers of families that qualify for free and reduced lunch rates, right? So those are going to be, families with lower income. So you'll see certainly across the state, there are cities and towns, school districts that get much, much more in federal dollars than we do here in Timberlane. And what we have found over the last few years, I've been managing, this is my third year managing the grant, is that it's steadily dropping, which is unfortunate. Like I said, we ended up having about a $200,000 difference in what our grant allocation was last year to this school year, which really, at this point, my grant includes nothing more than just tutors. In the past, I've been able to build in professional development opportunities for our Title I tutors, to give them specialized training in multisensory reading techniques and that type of thing to work with our students. And unfortunately, this year, I'm able to do nothing more than just support a couple of tutors at Pollard School. I have 1.5 tutor at Danville this year, and 1.5 at Sandown North. When I say 1.5, at the half-year point, I've had to write the grant such that a half of a tutor in each of those schools will move over to Pollard, because Pollard right now has the highest percentage of free and reduced. So even once you get to the district level, your allocations out to the schools are again based on the free and reduced percentages.
So I have a question with regard to what that someone, I don't remember exactly who it was, said that not only was it for kids that needed early intervention, but also for support for kids who were more on the accelerated end of.
Sure, so.
So is that also
Yeah, so
encompassed in that?
Title I federal dollars is really based on meeting criteria based on an area of need. And so for us, we're using the federal Title I dollars for students who are struggling learners. What we're proposing for this budget, if we hire interventionists through school district funding, we would like to utilize the interventionists to support both our enrichment model and our RTI model, which supports, really sort of both ends of the spectrum, if you will, in terms of, the variance in learner types.
Any other questions, because for the principal of Atkinson?
I just wanted clarification on that question I asked earlier. So it is an increase in the in-service. Joe?
It looks like it, yeah.
Yeah.
So just a mistake on the hot sheet.
Any other comments or concerns? Is there a motion to accept this presentation for under advisement?
So made.
Second? Okay, vote. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was wondering if I could ask that, I don't know if you guys have been reading the reports on here. I try to generally, from my viewpoint, I try to look at previous years, budgeted, expended.
Yes.
And what I like to do, and I know you can only fit so much information on a piece of paper here, and we have the 19 requested, the 18 budgeted, the difference, 17 budgeted, 17 expended, 16 expended. What I'd like to do is to propose that we replace the difference and put in the 2016 actually budgeted, so we can actually get a 2-year look back and see how that is, because in some of these ones, I've been seeing, anywhere from 10 to 15,000, depending upon which one you're looking at, of funds that were not expended, and maybe this would be something where, if you're looking over a couple of years, it's more likely that you might have that same amount in the current year, and then at the end of the year, late June, then you can turn around and figure out, maybe the principal from Pollard might be able to buy that, piece of apparatus that she was looking at for evacuation, and spend it in this current year, not looking to propose it on the future budget. So what I like to do is just to replace the difference column with that for future reports. Figure everybody can do the simple subtraction in their head.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Not everybody in their head.
I like the different column. It's kind of easy to read, but I mean,
You guys tell me, I can.
I mean, the difference column I think is very helpful. You can look at.
I mean, I agree, but I guess if I could have everything, yeah, I would say keep it there, but if you can only fit it on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, I would like to, at least for me, I would like to see the 2016 budgeted. If you could only have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 columns in there, each column has a you can turn around and say, you got 6 slots to put information on. And what I'm saying is that I think I would get more information out of a 2016 budgeted amount for that line item versus just having a difference between the 19 requested and the 18 budgeted, which is just a simple subtraction right there.
Well, you guys tell me what is most, where the most value is. John, I think what you're suggesting is, gee, can I maybe squeeze it in the end?
Can you add another column and not really?
Can you add another column?
Yeah. So.
If you can do that, that's great. I mean, but I'm looking at, you were running out of space.
Yeah, preliminarily, if I can get my system to do that, I'd like to see what it looks like, 'cause I don't know if it'll kind of shrink the whole thing down a little bit.
Yeah.
I can try that, and what it would be is 19 requested, 18 budget, 17 budget, 17 spend, 16 budget, 16 spend. And if I can do that, I'd still keep the difference column right in the middle between the, it'd be 19, 18, the difference, 17 budget, 17 spend, 16 budget, 16 spend.
Because I think that the difference is important. You look at the sheet, it stands out.
And you might be able to squeeze it up.
You know what I'm saying?
I find it very helpful to
Can
have.
I just ask
we
if we
gotta have the
table this?
difference.
Yes.
And here's
See
the
what
time.
Jeff can do.
We have our technology guy here. He's
Yeah,
able to
he-
tell me what I can do with my reports,
He's
right?
kind of waiting for us, and we're debating.
I'll
continue.
all night.
Very important.
So Ken,
Didn't make me
15
plan.
minutes, keep me on schedule, we're already way behind.
Right, no problem.
My schedule is way behind here, I'm very upset.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ken Henderson, Director of Technology for the district, and I have a couple different budget books to present tonight. One is technology, the other is business services. They're both supported really by a technology plan that we passed last year as a district. It's a 5-year technology plan, and there's many components to that tech plan, but where the budget really comes in is in the access to technology part of the tech plan, and there's several different parts of that, and that includes, obviously devices that students needs, infrastructure to support robust and secure and reliable connections, and there's applications as well that the students use every day. 21st century learning is, of course, here to stay, and I don't think that's debatable in 2017 anymore. We really need to make sure our students are prepared for the future. So I'm going to propose we do, unless you guys have want to go another way. I was thinking technology first. We'll start with that. And I'll just go line by line. You guys have this sheet which explains the major increases and decreases in the lines. And I'm just going to start from the top here, which is the first one, which is the 1100-330 line item consulting, which is an increase of $2,400. That is due to increased demand in virtual field trips or distance learning. These are very popular in the district today. They provide great opportunities for students to go places that they normally wouldn't be able to go, or visit places they wouldn't be able to visit, especially students without means. So they're used a lot in the district, and we saw increased usage that we're trying to account for next year. The next line item there, repairs, is actually a decrease of $3,500 there. That is due to us dropping a service where we were having the vendors. It was a few dollars per Chromebook to have them do most of the work, to set them up on our Wi-Fi and settings. I'm figuring, why are we doing that? We should probably drop that and do it ourselves, of course, and we're going to do that now. They've been doing it for many years here, so going forward, no longer going to do that.
At this point, I think the kids can do that.
They probably do.
No, just give it to them. Set up yourself. Supplies down a little bit this year. That's due to us. You'll see some devices actually kind of falling off the scope of our purview here, and among those are Nooks. We used to be purchasing Nooks on a yearly basis. We're looking at getting less and less Nooks year in, year out because of the Chromebooks we're going to really as our main device. So we don't need keyboards for Nooks if we're not buying Nooks, so that's why that's down. The information access line item.
Can I just stop you there?
Absolutely.
So in that line item, there's 15,000 for cables, parts, ceiling mounts, etc.
Yep. Yeah, that's
Can you elaborate a little bit more?
toner. It's a lot of different things. Keyboards. There's monitors in there. Or stuff like that. Yeah, there's a lot of things and supplies. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Information access is up a bit there, and that's due to a couple things. As we buy more Chromebooks, there's a one-time fee for Chromebooks of $25 to add them into our Google domain so that we can centrally administrate them. More Chromebooks means more $25 fees, and that's why that is up there. We've also swapped out some of the tools that we're using in the district. One of those is we're using Landsweeper now, which is providing a much more robust inventory and trouble ticket system. We were using something called IT Direct, so we swapped that out last year. It's a little bit more money, but it provides us a lot better reporting and trouble ticket resolution. We've added some more items for the Chromebooks as they become more popular, of course. One of those is WeVideo, allows students to do video editing, and teachers as well. Land School's a new application we're employing, which allows teachers to better support classroom management of Chromebooks. They actually are able to, on their screen, view 20 different Chromebook screens, if you will, of what's in their class, so they can really manage and look at what the students are doing with those things. We did drop, we didn't just add here, we did drop Discovery Streaming at both the middle school and high school next year. We're finding the use of that down, and as other free services are out there. We're just using those instead. So we're not seeing a big demand for that, so we did not renew it for next year. The new computer line item, that's obviously up significantly, and that's because of the CIP item of interactive projectors. This was, same presentation as last year, really. We have an aging projector inventory out there. A lot of them are on carts. It's not the best setup. There's cables that are strung along the floor. The teachers have to recalibrate them all the time. Of course, these are not the best quality resolution. And there's also an element of the bulbs you have to replace, and the bulbs are not cheap. If you ever price out these projector bulbs, they can go for a couple $100. So you'll see later on, there's a line item in there for projector bulbs, and that's assuming if this doesn't pass, we'll need to continue to get those bulbs, or we lose with those projectors. And as they get older, they burn them out quicker and quicker. The next line item is down a bit there, and that's because with increased Chromebook usage, is less laptops, nukes, and monitors, like we were talking about. Every year you'll see a little bit more of a drop as we add more and more Chromebooks. And that was the major items in technology that changed last year.
Can I go back to the interactive projectors?
Yes.
So that 123, is that just the projectors, or does that include the installation work as well?
That's installation as well.
With the outlets.
With the outlets. Yeah, we added outlets this year in the CIP as part of that, yes.
And how many projectors?
That's roughly about 50.
And is there an installation plan of where they would start to be installed? And
Yeah, it's mostly the high school, but we're kind of evaluating that. It may, I've kind of rethought that, and that was the plan originally. We may be more elementary now. That's to be determined, I guess, based on evaluation that will happen, assuming if it gets funded, of course.
so the reason I asked it that way is someone mentioned something to me last year about the interactive projectors and studies that they've done at what age levels they seem to be more effective.
Yeah.
So I started researching it myself, and it does seem that the elementary levels
Yeah.
are where you get the best bang for your buck, if you will.
Yes.
The better experience, the children just get more from it.
Yeah, certainly the
still having
interactive part, yeah.
What's that?
Certainly the interactive part of that, yeah. So I would concur with that, and that's why we were kind of reevaluating there. So we did have a schedule laid out last year, and I didn't put one on this year because we are thinking more elementary. I just don't know exactly which schools or where. Certainly want to hit as many, with those 50, reach as many students that would use the interactive part as best we can.
Do you have a breakdown of how many classrooms would get it at the elementary level based on grade levels, and how many would get it at the middle school and high school level?
Like total numbers of classrooms?
Yeah, so meaning,
yeah, I have like gross numbers of
13
classrooms.
classrooms in high school, 20 classrooms in...
For next year, I do not. No, we're gonna figure that out for sure. And like I was saying, I think we're gonna shift more elementary with that. They do have it in 6 to 12 already for the math classrooms, and they use those quite a bit. So yeah, I concur with you though. I think elementary would probably be.
And how much are they a piece,
It's like 2,300 with installation and the outlet and everything, yeah.
Now, last year, I think you had a very brief presentation. I don't recall whether it was the CIP or the school board. I don't know how many members on this committee have seen that. If it would make sense to put together a minute or two presentation, then maybe I could show the next meeting if you think the revalue is to actually how we're using them. Not anything long, but just to give an idea as to what the actual impact is. And
Absolutely.
You don't have to be here. You don't have to be here. I can just say.
I don't mind being here either. That's fine.
I would like as part of that, if I may, so there's some trade-offs that you talked about, but including in that, so if you look at, whether it's elementary or middle school or high school, if we've got court issues and reboot issues, one is the interactive piece at the elementary, but sort of your decision-making proposal around how to distribute that wealth, if you will, should that be accepted, and the rationale, because, there's a lot of competing factors there. It would be really helpful to have some context.
Okay.
Yes.
Could we get a breakdown of exactly how many of these projectors we have right now and where they are? Just as far as, are they just at the high school, middle school, you know, if there are 50, there are 25 at the middle school, 25 at the high school, or
Absolutely.
if there are any at the elementary level?
Yep, I can do that, sure.
Thank you.
There is a couple at the elementary level. Just, I think literally just a couple, but they do get used a lot. Yeah.
Okay, so you'll provide that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Is there a motion to accept this budget under, for advisement?
So made.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Okay.
Okay, moving along to business services, we'll just take it from the same format, take it from the top down on those changes. Maintenance, this increase here of $8,300 is just about all due to our VoIP phone system. We have 8 installations of VoIP systems we need to maintain in the district. We just brought on Sandown Central this past year. They have the new phone system there. So there, of course, there's an increase in the support and maintenance with adding that location. But also what's budgeted here is an upgrade. Our maintenance and support contracts certainly cover us for break fix. With all the phones and the PBXs on the back end, but support the voicemail and all the other systems that tie it together. But it does not include upgrades. We have not upgraded for a few years, I guess. So I'm definitely trying to recommend that we budget for that and do that next year. There's security aspects of that we need to consider, and it's just like a computer, really. You need to do your updates. We need to do our updates on our phone system. Next one down, supplies is down $3,000, and I just, looked it over based on past usage, and I think we could do with a little bit less supplies. We're fine with what's budgeted. Information access is down because the document management system that we put in this past year, we put out for bid, and we got a better price than we initially budgeted for, so we realized some savings there, and that's why that's down. Software is up, as you see there, almost 13, and that's because we do have an increased cost with our Infinite Vision system, which is our financial and HR system, which is online now, or based in the cloud, if you will. The other part of this is that our time clock system has been end-of-lifed, and we need to factor in either an upgrade of that or a replacement. So that regular maintenance cost that was in there, I think it was like $3,500, is going up because we need to get this, again, either the new version of it or a replacement for it. So that's why that number is up there. And we don't really have a choice. There's no really way we can just continue with the current system. It's end of life. They're not really supporting it anymore. The new equipment line item there, that's up $21,000, and that is strictly the one line item in that whole the one item in that whole line item is just for the new video equipment we're proposing for this room. So you can see some cameras on tripods here. That's not, that's not optimal. It's not very aesthetically pleasing. It's because we have broken cameras. This one over here no longer functions. This one over here has problems all the time. If you watch the videos, sometimes you'll see some problems.
We have it on. Dean,
then.
Could you give us around the world here with the with your different cameras? We can actually see it right behind you.
That one was just flickering. See?
Yep.
So that's,
Can you just jump around to the cameras at work, or is it just 2 now?
We have 2 functioning robotic, what's called a PTZ camera. And those are the point, tilt, zoom ones that are controllable. But with the one that's failing and the intermittent one, we replaced them with the tripod cameras. And that's obviously not really ideal. These are, the fixed cameras were intended to be over at the high school, middle school campus and used for other purposes as well. And so that's one thing we're.
Can you run us through every camera real quick?
Sure.
How old are the PTZs, Dean?
The PTZs there, 2011 school year, we have 3 of them, and one of them is in the state of failure right now, and another one that's intermittent, so, replace, between those 2, we got the fixed cameras as well, so that's what we're dealing with.
Could you hit the different cameras for us? The interesting thing is that you see that the cameras themselves are scaling up, scaling down, don't have the ability to zoom, and it makes it difficult in some ways to follow the meetings because of the different resolution, the different quality that we're picking up those cameras right now. As part of this proposal as well, it would give greater resolution to us to be able to project out to the communities, and that means that the level of detail that can be included in presentations can be much greater to go out to the.
How much are these cameras?
Well,
There's a quote for budgetary quote we have out there. They're not cheap. I mean, they're a few thousand a piece for high definition.
A few
handheld
thousand for a $70 million budget is noise. I would recommend that we ask the school board to turn around and get new ones for this. They can find the money for this and have it. These meetings are highly utilized by our community. It's our means of communication with them.
And, I think that the argument, the thought had been that this isn't really student impacting or anything like that. What about the thousands of people that are out there, has been my point. I want to share more information. I want to get it out there. So I appreciate that perspective.
I think it's just a level of professionalism, right? I mean, you're flipping through your channels today. Everybody has HD, right? And then you get on our channel, and it's low def and fuzzy, and
Well, I think
you
one-
can read things.
I will agree that we've made some, we could always do better, but we have made strides. If you look back where we were years ago, I mean, there was no video of this meeting or the school board meetings. Now we're actually, not just video via the cable systems, we're streaming it now on the internet, and various towns are doing the same thing. So it's nice to step and look back and say where we've been and where we're going and where we want to go, but for a couple $1,000s to replace these cameras, and I do understand that they are not cheap, but they're not, $10,000-$20,000 cameras. They're a couple $1,000s, if that.
No, and that quote, it's not just the cameras as well. It's the equipment in the back end to keep it HD.
Well, that I think you'd be able to reutilize. Is that correct, Dean?
Correct. What we're, apologize for not being on the mic, but
No, that's fine.
what we're dealing with right now is that because we have some new equipment and some old equipment, I'm not gonna get into too much technical detail, but we have a lot of adapters, converters, upscalers, a lot of stuff in the back here, and that's not helping things either. And every time I come in here, there's something else different where I'm resetting a box or fixing something. And it's to a point where I'm no longer able to, if I'm unavailable, I'm no longer able to be away and delegate somebody else, because there's too many possible issues that we could run into.
It's an issue of visibility and accessibility, not only to our meetings, but also to the content that we'd like to be able to put out there, the presentations, the factors, and be able to have the right form to do it, so.
So in fact, it's not a few $1,000s, it is this $21,000 to do. So just to be clear of what your request was, Sean, what I think I'm hearing, and so I want to validate that, is that we're not talking about just a few $1,000s, we are actually talking about this $21,000.
That's what we have budgeted.
Which
as
on the
to
71
replace
million
the whole
is
system.
small, I still agree with that.
No, I do, but I think that
Just to be
this is
clear.
something that the community directly interacts with.
So we cut this last year, right? Wasn't there a presentation?
correct, yes, that was
So we cut this
It's a
last year.
CIP item.
And this year we have 2 cameras replacing some that failed because we didn't cut it to put the money in to replace it.
So I think it should be considered with everything else that for the same reasons that has been done in the past.
Yeah, these cameras are earmarked for something else
Yep.
at other schools, and they're obviously not being used for that because we have to use them here.
Can you make a generalized statement regarding, we had a gentleman who spoke earlier about, this is one of the areas, as far as the cameras, and then 2 items down when you talk about our network, but can you just talk about, there's just no way to cut this down? The gentleman was making it sound like you can do this for a lot less money.
Well, I guess it depends on what you're talking about.
I don't know what he's talking about, and I don't know this technology.
I'm not gonna speak for him, but I think what he was getting at is that we're gonna put in, proposal is that we're gonna have a contract and we're gonna run fiber between all the various schools.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to
That's
the
the next
fiber
line.
one.
That's two lines
I am
down.
gonna get to that.
What would you guess he was talking about, like,
He
the
did speak-
cameras?
He did, well, it was the exact point, how much reach of your
I think he was talking about
cameras.
the microphones, right? Specifically about the microphones.
Well, that's one aspect of it, but what he was looking at is that, you know, I mean, it's internet protocol data that's gonna be going over this, versus instead of putting in fiber, where then we gotta turn around and maintain it, have the equipment on both ends and so forth.
That's the next, that's two line items down, actually.
My impression on both the equipment side is, well, how much are microphones? They're a couple, $100 a piece maybe. How do you come up with your number? I think the problem is we look around, we see 4 cameras, but it's also the infrastructure that we use to project out, which Dean has all stacked up there, which are scaled up and scaled down and clunky at best. And I think that's what his
We
question
basically
was.
had a professional come out and scope it out for us.
So how many HD cameras are you replacing or putting in? Well, So if you got the.
It'll be 4. Correct?
Before.
Is that what we were looking at?
So 2,000, so it's 8,
Correct. The current existing system had 3 cameras. However, with the increased usage of the road in different situations, like now we have the SAU meetings, which are a larger group. There have been more presentations where there have entire groups of students coming in, so I think it's probably justifiable to have a 4-camera system.
and those are $2,000 a piece. So you're saying the camera itself, is that what you said?
Off the top of my head, they're a couple thousand a piece, right?
Right.
So that leaves, so let's see, the rest is
There's-
installation, and
there's-
computer backup.
But there's other equipment to support that besides the
Back-end
camera
equipment.
themselves.
The support equipment.
My impression is that's what the gentleman was
So
going
another
to.
15, well, maybe what?
Right, so it's not
$12,000
just
of
cameras.
computers and installation.
Yeah, it's not just a camera and it's not just a microphone, it's all the supporting equipment
Well, I
to
get
go
that.
with it.
What we would, in order to support the newer PTZ cameras, unfortunately, we would also need to upgrade the control interface and what basically controls the different cameras. Unfortunately, the system we have now that zooms and tilts, that only works with analog cameras, so we need to replace that as well.
Yeah.
And then there's installation, of course, is
Right.
a few thousand, yeah. Thousand anyway.
So, oh, sorry, Julie?
Yes, ma'am.
Just had a question. So you had somebody come in to give an estimate of the different things. If this were approved, would it go out to bid? What's the process here?
We have to, right? Yeah, we have to.
They'd have to, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a budgetary quote, right, for next year, assuming, so yeah, we'd absolutely put it out for bid.
And we mentioned, they mentioned HD, and I know that we don't necessarily need our meetings to be in HD. There's no narcissistic purpose here. I said it last year, and I'll say it again. We're very, very limited as to what we can put out there in content currently, and in terms of what the detail level is and all of that. HD gives the wider screen format, which you see up there. Now, with the cameras we currently have, regular def, or however you put it, they have to be stretched. The definition is not favorable, and it's limiting the content that we can put up here, and it's limiting the content we can put out to our taxpayers,
Right,
and our
when-
parents and our community members.
Right, when people come to SLT and, do their presentations, but they're, practicing, if you will, for you guys and for the school board, we always have to tell them, be conscious of your font, which means less information on a slide, or your graph is too detailed. You need to dumb down the resolution, which is unfortunate, as Mr. Dow was alluding to.
Yep.
Less information.
So one thing you mentioned was that some of the cameras that are in this room now were initially intended to be used in the middle school, high school. So what things aren't happening in those places that we're missing out on?
Yeah, I think
Can you
some of them,
speak to that a
they
little
do, is this the morning show cameras, or?
More so, where we're at right now, it's more an issue of I would say it is partially an issue of convenience, is that the idea of having this equipment at the high school is, like, if there's an event coming up, I mean, I was actually just asked today at 2 o'clock if I could record an event at 3 o'clock. So these things come up, and if this camera's stored down here and there's a board meeting going on, then that's not viable. So partially it is an issue of convenience, but ideally we'd like to have the stuff ready for usage for different events throughout the buildings and improving on those products.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions concerning the cameras or concerning this budget? Have you completed, have you gone through your? Oh, you have-
No, I mean,
two more.
I'll just
Yeah,
touch on
we have a couple
I
more.
got the big one coming up.
Yeah.
No, I'm all done.
Thought that was tough.
The microphones are the same idea, right? You know, we're.
So I would assume it's a new
microphones.
mixing board back there.
Yeah,
and,
mixing board with microphones, and I think, you know, we would honestly maybe look at wireless mics.
I was gonna say, wasn't there something about possibly wireless mics for the table that you're at now?
Yeah, and they didn't work out so well, because
Right.
they weren't, right, Dean, they weren't, they were like middle of the road ones, they weren't really, you know, they were.
Right.
We tried to Band-Aid the solution, it didn't work out.
Would it be more mics than we have right now?
Good question. It's a good question. It's because the wireless ones, they're like little pod things you drop down, and I think you guys can share them. So it may be less, but it depends on the model, of course.
Maybe more effective.
What's that?
More effective.
More effective, correct.
Same ones.
So. Then the big one here is the replacement computer/network. That is our fiber solution that we're looking to put into the school. So the idea here is currently we have 8 locations, including the SAU that we own. The middle and high school are fiber together, and we did have to do a fiber connection there at the high school that services both buildings this past summer. The reason we did that is because the cable modems were failing. They weren't able to support the amount of sessions that we were pushing out there, and it was affecting everything. It was really bad. So we put in fiber there and had Comcast come in and do that for us, and we were actually really able to do it for a monthly recurring cost that was equal to what we were paying before, more or less, because we were able to drop one of the T1s at the middle school. The T1 is, if you're familiar with that term, is from the 1990s. It's a really slow, expensive lease line that's dedicated between the schools, and we currently have those in location at each one of our schools that tie us together. So these are really expensive, slow lines, and that's how we utilize connections and applications between the buildings. The internet at each building, each location, other than the middle and high school, utilizes a cable modem, which is, I mean, it's antiquated, right? They can only put out so much bandwidth. There's shared devices with your neighbors, so that if you have a cable modem at home and it gets slow during peak times, it's because your neighbors in the neighborhood are on as well. It's not guaranteed bandwidth. They can say, oh, you know, you have 200 megabytes connection. Well, if it's slow, you could get 20. It's you know, that's just the name of the game with cable modems. So what the proposal is that we're going to fiber all the schools together, logically. We're going to have a really fast network that's going to connect all the schools, and we're going to have 2 egresses to the internet that all the schools will go out. And we're going to do a load balancing situation where more or less half the schools go out through this building, the SAU, and the other half will go out through Danville. Why those locations? Because that's where our generators are, so that we can keep that equipment going in the event of a power outage. So what's involved here is not only the fiber connections coming in from the poles, but also the equipment I need to support that infrastructure. I have routers, firewalls in place, of course, at each one of the schools. None of them are capable of supporting this type of infrastructure. So I need 8 locations worth of new routers, firewalls, and I am also budgeting something called link balancers in. Link balancers are devices that can fail over. So we have, being a school district, we get free Comcast cable modem service. It's not, the bandwidth is really low. But in the event of a fiber network failure, the link balancer will send the traffic out to the internet through the cable modem. So there's a level of redundancy in there. So that is where the costs, majority of this comes in, is all that equipment that I need to budget for. So the 300 that was mentioned is, obviously that was a CIP number, that was a placeholder. What I'm asking for is 218,000.
So now, the other gentleman, obviously earlier today, mentioned that the Xfinity could come in here and provide the same thing for less. So why is that? Why are we going that route?
No, I mean, I've talked to Xfinity/Comcast, yeah.
Okay.
They they can bring fiber into our building
right.
and go, here's your handoff. They're not gonna buy us routers or firewalls.
Well, can we
or
save on
link
the,
bouncers.
can we save on the fiber optics coming from the building, from the pole? Would they do that for us? I mean.
They would, yeah.
So
And
why?
I actually have some information on that. So we did have some discussions at CIP over the past couple of years about the fiber in the communities and
Sure.
what it would take to bring fiber into our schools. The last mile, if you will, where's the nearest fiber, location we would have to go to. And the cost actually today is $88,817 for all the schools to get to, they're fibered up. Because it's not just a matter of bringing the fiber to the nearest pole and being like, I'm done. In some cases, they have to bring it to where there's capacity. We're not hooking up a house, right? We're hooking up a school with thousands of connections in some cases. The good news is Comcast is willing to subsidize that heavily. I think our cost on that was like $1,000 to do. Is Comcast doing this out of the kindness of their hearts? Of course they're not. They're looking to win our fiber business so that they can make it back. They have to sign a contract, right? And they're also, I think, anticipating more fiber growth, of course, in the next year while we do this project. The fiber has exploded in the towns, that is true.
So I'm confused. So so Comcast is already feeding fiber, this bid, what you proposed here,
Yep.
is actually, Comcast is actually already is giving us
So there's
support
really
with
two-
the fiber to the building? And this is putting fiber throughout the locations in the buildings.
This is doing two things. This is bringing fiber into the schools and the SAU and giving us a handoff, right? Here's your fiber connection.
Okay, so that's from the pole to here?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's the equipment. My network right now, if I plug that into my network, right, it's not going to work very well. I need to replace that
So
equipment.
is that like, I mean, I don't know how it works. Is it like a router you'd get for
Yep, there's really three.
for the cable you have now, so couldn't we rent the routers and be cheaper?
No, they don't work that way.
No, I mean,
They don't work that way.
these aren't routers you get like these aren't Best Buy routers. These are heavy-duty enterprise class routers that cost thousands and thousands of dollars.
So they do not supply them?
Absolutely not.
But you can buy them on your own, as you mentioned.
Correct, yes.
And how much are they each? I mean, you have 8 locations, so I mean, are you looking at like?
Yeah.
Is that the
Yeah,
88,000?
So the router we're looking at is like 7,300 piece.
Is there any
$7,300
way
a piece.
to,
Yes.
lease these? I mean, as part of that, I mean, I know we do that in our town, to lease these various pieces of equipment, firewalls and so forth. That way, it's an
I
ongoing
don't know
maintenance.
of a program where you can do that, but it's, I mean,
So we take care of the maintenance piece too, which would be
I
great.
mean, did you always,
Then in 5 or 6 years, you turn around and it
Yeah,
just
you're
as
not bu- you're not
technology
replacing
changes, you just
1700.
bring out the new one.
Yeah,
Yes,
Look, I don't want to go micromanage your work.
I do.
You do.
It's a lot of money. I want to micromanage
I
this.
do. So I'm trusting our professionals.
Well, I
Go
think that's
out.
what we're here for.
Get us the best value, whatever it might be, and come back. So just making sure whatever you're presenting
Yeah.
to us, because I don't know enough about it to challenge it, whatever you're presenting to us is in the best interest, the best value, it's the
yes,
best
and
everything.
so there's two things that I'm gonna say about that. The first is this will go out to bid, of course, like everything else. The second is that there is the possibility of offsetting revenue for this. Government programs such as E-rate that are not guaranteed, of course. But we're gonna go for every dollar we can to help pay for this. They have, programs out there that support internet connections for schools and help pay for infrastructure and monthly recurring costs around fiber connections. Again, those programs may change. They're constantly in flux. They change every year. I can't even apply for E-rate yet for next year until like November or December.
And I guess part of my other,
We'll go for every dollar we can for that.
and then part of my other, I guess, statement that I would entrust is, through the right administration, we look for grants if they're available.
So-
Yeah, this is what, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. That's
So
what
the
we're
state did announce that they were dedicating surplus, and very ironically, this is a priority, to fiber and safety.
Yes.
And, for school districts. And I was a little bit surprised by that. It did come up out of the blue. I will share with you that one of the catches with the state money is it's there, it's burning a hole in someone's pants to get distributed out to the communities. But if you're not ready to go with the project, you don't qualify for the money.
That's right. It'll be shovel ready.
You gotta be shovel ready. So it's something of a.
Kind of a leap of faith, though, isn't it? If you don't know if you don't know it's coming, but you have to have it in progress, and you hope they're gonna give you some money.
It's counterintuitive because I think the idea would be that maybe they're looking to benefit maybe the North Country or different areas like that that may not fit in our particular demographics. But those are the ones who are least likely to be able to have a project scoped out, ready to go.
So therefore, there'd be more money left over for us, you're saying?
Good, bad, or, the equity of it, debate all day, but essentially, yes.
I guess, well, I'm glad to see it's not 300,000, that's a good thing. That was a little scary number. But is it possible we can definitely look into leasing the routers, the $7,300 router? Because like he mentioned, maintenance on those things and the technology changes constantly. And if we're leasing it, we're in a better position to place that equipment out and be.
We can look into that. I guess I can't really get any hard numbers on that for next year.
So how many would there be? So there's eight?
There's 8 locations we have to count for.
And one router in each location?
One router each location. I need a couple firewalls, one at here, one at Danville. Now, I'm scoping out equipment that isn't just, I'm planning on lining out 500 megs between the schools. I'm not buying routers that just support 500 megs. I'm buying them that support a gig or 1,000 megs. Because if we will have to turn up the bandwidth someday. It's never going to go down. We won't have to go buy all new equipment. Right? So
you want all the sides, sure.
Correct.
That makes sense.
We're going to have 1 gigabit connections to the internet, so I'm buying firewalls that are capable of supporting 2 gigabits. Those are not cheap. Those firewalls, ballpark, $30K.
Okay.
How many are you gonna need?
I need 2.
2. For both
locations.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah,
So
and that will be a failover as well, so that if the SAU goes down, everybody that's able to will go out through Danville and vice versa.
That's basically all your cost. You got $90,000 for the routers and another 60 for the firewalls.
So, correct. Yeah, it's not
So
inexpensive
if we could
equipment.
lease those.
Can we, I think, what we're looking at here is a budget item that's basically at the upper level. This is what you want to spend. Now, if you
I guess what I'm
can
saying is if you
reduce
give
it by, down the road through leasing and other things, that's great. But right now, we're just talking about a line item.
I know we can do it. If this is, put through the budget, I know we can do it. That's what I'm saying.
But what I think that the other thought process is that you can turn around and accomplish the same goal, except that you're turning around, instead of buying it all up front, you're turning around and spreading it out over several years with the lease program. It's just like turning around and coming here and saying, hey, we want to buy a car for the district or a van, or we're going to take that and lease it over 5 years. What is the cost? It's going to be a one-time hit on the full cost of a vehicle, or it's going to be a roughly 1/5 of it, once each year. I mean, you could turn around and potentially do this at a lot cheaper. And we're just saying, is this like, look into it and come back with a proposal?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking, we could do a lease, lease to buy?
Because I know the firewalls, we could do it. We turn around and we have one of them in our town that we lease.
Because we're gonna be addressing this in a couple of ways over the course of, next week and then also down the road. So you have an opportunity to do that research.
Okay.
And get back to us.
Yeah, and get some ballpark numbers.
Because it's, in doing budgets, every project that everybody presents that's gonna come through here, they're all competing for the same exact taxpayer dollars. There's no distinguish between a dollar for this particular project or this one. It's the same dollar that goes to the taxpayers. So if this gentleman can turn around and come up with a lower proposal, he's got a higher success rate of his project getting not cut. So the question is that if you can look outside of the box and look at other alternatives, it's in your best interest.
Yeah, I think this is.
Lee had a question.
So what's the ROI look like for 218,000?
It's a good question. It's hard to determine right now because the rates for the monthly.
Basically, when are we gonna, if we're bringing in fiber at a cost of 218,000, we're getting rid of other services that currently cost us X amount of dollars monthly.
Okay.
How many months to recoup the cost?
Yeah,
Could I just hit pause?
Yeah, sure.
There are two distinct scenarios being presented, and the first is the proposal that you're trying to present right now is more of a closed network fiber option. What's being talked about and discussed is bringing fiber directly to the schools and not a closed network scenario. So when you look at ROI, if there were a possibility in a closed network scenario of being able to consolidate VoIP, local buildings and all that, wouldn't that be a factor?
Would that bring the cost down? You're saying
I-
limit those costs? Is that what you're
I
saying?
mean, I think the only option is the closed network. Was anybody talking about having just connections at the schools?
What I understood was that we were talking about leasing the equipment,
Right.
but it would still be the same.
Same setup. Right.
Same setup. That's the way I interpreted it.
One closed network. One closed network, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I thought the same thing, yeah. Yeah, the ROI, Lee, is hard to determine because I don't know exactly what what the rates will be, because they haven't been set yet. But what I can ballpark, and don't hold me to this, is, we pay roughly 12, 13K a month right now for internet access. I'm hoping 7 or 8 a month. Much more robust and reliable network too. But also in that is that currently, because our bandwidth is so reliable and slow between the schools, I have to have servers and applications and services at each location. I have to times 8 everything, times 8. It's like our phone system, right? We have 8 PBXs. Well, if we have a fiber network connecting everything, I can have 2 of everything instead of 8. I can have a phone system and a backup phone system, some servers here and the servers at Danville, and no servers at Atkinson because we don't need them.
So is it gonna be a redundant ring?
Yeah.
And then two more questions, and then I'm done. That 218,000. So the fiber's gonna hit eventually at a pole or a pedestal. We don't have I'm assuming, maybe I'm wrong. We don't have conduit and pole string.
Well, that's the $88,000 that Comcast is.
Okay,
chipping
so
in.
they're gonna trench.
Correct. Yeah,
They
there's-
come across
there's a
our
lot-
parking lot. They're patching it.
Yes, correct. That is to bring it to the DMARC in the schools.
Wow,
Yes.
okay. And then, just on the router piece of it in the firewall, have you explored just a fiber to Ethernet converter? So they come in,
The handoff we
demarc it.
get will be Ethernet. They will
So
be
you just
giving
wanna
us-
take advantage of the bandwidth
Correct.
of the fiber?
I wanna
So
take-
what, are they 10/100s now, or?
Yeah, the firewalls, off the top of my head, I think it's like 100 meg they're rated for. Yeah.
Is it something that maybe you would consider, is it not an option, to do the fiber install this year, bring up the network, run on current hardware, and then explore
I don't think we
hardware?
can do what we need to do for the routing of it.
Okay.
It's not to get too technical, but I don't think the routing protocols we'll need to accomplish both the load balancing and the failover scenario we want to do. And there may be problems with if they, they'll get pegged. Those, because right now we have a natural, what am I trying to say? The cable modems are so slow that the router doesn't get taxed. Well, the fiber, they will.
Yeah.
And that will quickly become a bottleneck and an issue.
Thank you.
I do have one more quick point before we close out on this issue, if you'd entertain for just a moment. If I could request that someone make a motion for a non-public under security.
I will make a motion that we enter non-public under 91A:3, Section 2, security functions.
Second.
Oh, no.
Ron? Okay. We're now back in public. I'd like to make a motion to accept under advisement the business services budget as presented.
Second.
All in favor, any more discussion?
I'd actually have a point of order. I think we should turn around and address the minutes that for the non-public that we just got out of.
Well, I mean, we can do it right after that motion.
You like to keep
Doesn't
things
matter.
tidy? You like to keep things tidy?
I'd like to finish up one thing before I move to the next, but it's okay.
Do it after.
Should we see with a vote? All in favor of accepting this budget under advisement? Opposed? Okay, now, the point of order again, did you explain that again? What we need to do here?
We need to address this.
I'd like to seal the minutes from that non-public we were just in indefinitely.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
No action was taken that would require any other.
Nope.
Moving on. Any administrative report?
Yes, I do. So I would like to apologize to everyone on the board. This budget development process has been interesting, to say the least. We've had quite a bit of activity in the business department. We've had staff turnover. I have actually lost another employee, and we're just backfilling her position. That's left me exceptionally busy. But that said, this committee thought, I think through a thoughtful process, sought to have all of our agenda items a week ahead of time. And I'm on board with that. We were behind on our end to the extent that we were so far behind that I was still meeting today for our next meeting, which means that I should have everything out a week ahead. So this is really a one-time thing, and I'll ask your understanding on that, and I apologize. I think we have a good, clear directive on getting the information out, to review it, and, back to protocol after this. I really had fully expected to be able to get that out, and it will in the future. So that's that. The budget development process is going on with the guidance that we have, and we've been working through that. So we have also had in the past week our treasurer, our district treasurer, pass away, Paul Sullivan, after many years of service to the district. Fell ill a number of weeks ago, and our assistant treasurer has made herself available to undertake all of those tasks that need to be done. So if anyone does know of anyone who may be interested, the school board would typically make an appointment for a replacement, for someone to replace that treasurer position. So it certainly has been a very interesting several months in our department. So I think that might be it. And with Ken Henderson, by the way, on the CIP, I was the one who requested that he leave his placeholder in, that we not have a view on it at the time that we were doing the CIP back in March, that he wait till the latest possible point to come up with the most accurate numbers. We may end up with different numbers, as we talked about, between now and the budget, closing the budget on that project. So, and we had a question on correspondence, all new to me. So I see TRSD Budget Committee. I assume that that's the TRSD Budget Committee, not the chairman or not someone. I assume that's the whole committee. So when I see that and I don't see any distribution behind it, that's confusing. We'll get that protocol down, and on our site, I will also show you how to update to get noticed when any changes are made to our site when the information is uploaded. I expect that we'll be able to have our information out and available on Friday, Friday midday afternoon. I'll let you know via email, but you may even be able to see it pop up on the web when it's there, so you get notified automatically when there's a change. So.
I have the alert set up. It works well. I mean, as soon as it's posted, you're getting an email inbox.
It's a little tricky.
I think Ken last year put together like a 2-page document that walks people through how to set up their alerts. So you may want to talk to him.
I'll look into it. I was around last year, but I really didn't.
Yeah.
I'm still really working through the details of a budget committee email
There's
distribution.
no requirement for login or anything like that. This
There
is
is.
just-
There is.
Why would that be for this committee? What would we be putting up there that would be?
Well-
Right now, you would see the minutes we just sealed.
Yeah. Well, not only that, the major reason behind it was 2 years ago, maybe, when we had PDFs and Excel documents. We didn't want the Excel documents floating around in the public, because then a spreadsheet can be misconstrued, the data can be manipulated in any way.
Take a PDF and convert it over there, but, all right, I understand, the more I understand now with the non-public, I would agree with that.
With the, I think your login credentials would also tie to the alert. So if you go and subscribe to it, it'll tie to your email and then shoot you an email when I do an update, so.
So per Mr. O'Neill's request about this login, I've asked to get my access to SharePoint, but I don't have it. So when you asked, I'm assuming you don't have one?
No, I don't.
So let me just ask, maybe it's a rhetorical question. Who doesn't have one? So we should all, here's what I think. Get us all set up, send us all an email saying you're all set up and here's each one of your login password. Don't just assume I have it and he doesn't. Just
Yeah, and I,
get us all.
Yeah, just do it all, get everybody.
Get us all.
I am, but just get everybody.
Shotgun it.
yeah. So we, and you had also mentioned on the website, we had one request not to publish an email address or contact information. And so perhaps that's been a little bit too cautious. I actually have to figure out if that's a Ken or a Kathy issue. We can talk privately if there's anyone who doesn't want a name or town, an email address shared out there. I think you have a BudCom
I have my own, yeah, I have a BudCom email, yes.
address. So if anyone doesn't want their address shared, which I know there are a few of you who asked not to, just, I assume so you don't get spam, I can make that correction. But I appreciate everyone's understanding as we work through the process.
So you're gonna make them visible unless somebody has said not to?
Don't.
Okay.
Yeah, so people can reach out and let you know.
Okay.
So I just had a question. So is there any content up there right now on SharePoint for this current budget cycle that we're going through?
If you go into the meeting, you'll see all of the documents you have in front of you. Now, the agenda is under the agenda, the minutes would be under the minutes category. I don't think there's anything we've published that's been login required.
I haven't seen it. I've gone on there. I didn't see anything recently.
There
so
was nothing for this meeting.
Okay, you may,
The one for this
There
meeting
were some things
was
posted
from
earlier this
last
evening.
meeting. Was the CIP stuff that was posted on the one for this meeting, was on.
so that folder was populated, it was populated late this afternoon, though,
Well, yeah, it must have been really.
really late, yeah.
Yeah, I think my phone ding was again, I think they were just getting.
Should be doing that tomorrow.
Everything's up there now, but, oh, this stuff, yeah,
I
you
meant
get
the
this
stuff that, all the budget stuff that we're gonna be going over and, no, not next week.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, so it'll be up next week.
Correct, a week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow, you'll get it up there.
You have another question?
No, just the request I made, I would just ask that it becomes more of a priority than a back burner.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah, I have a few things here, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, any budget committee reports?
Only thing I would add is, Jim Paul and myself are going to be, as we talked about last time, working on the strategic planning part of the process. So we're gonna tag team on that, but they haven't met and they'll be meeting next week, so just FYI.
School board rep.
So, we did go over some stuff with the capital improvement plan. We decided to fund the Atkinson Academy playground and the Danville playground in this year's current budget, so those will be removed from the CIP completely. And there was also an error, I don't know if anybody has it, but I'm sure the next draft they get, Jeff, that one will be removed.
No,
You
it'll-
probably already removed it, no?
It stays in that
Stays
CIP,
in.
and just like you saw with Atkinson, that it's in the budget.
Yeah.
And it'll be credited out of the budget as well, so everyone knows.
That's right, 'cause the CIP's locked in.
Yep.
All right, so
I
there
just
was
want
an
one
error.
document.
One of the errors, it was $268,000, so that's a big error. And other than that, next week, we're gonna be going over the default budget criteria and getting an unofficial surplus number. That's all I got.
We have, I have no record of any unfinished business from last week. Last thing is other business. I was wondering, and this is just for me, on scheduling the agenda for next time. I was wondering if we could move the parking lot up to closer to the beginning, so that we could take care of that, and then just invite the presenters to come a little later. The idea basically being that if, just so that they don't have to, I don't wanna load up the parking lot with 2 meetings worth of materials. I'd like to get this meeting's materials resolved before we start to put new stuff in. And so my thinking is to put the parking lot as, after the delegations, and then go into the presentations from the new folk.
My only concern with that, I know what you're striving for, my only concern is, I think we could deliberate, in some cases an hour, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, on some of these parking lot items. And we have administrators that have worked a full day and have to, I mean, not that we don't either, but
Yeah.
they're coming in to present and they have to,
You also have to be subject to staying late, right?
yeah.
All right, we'll keep it as it is.
That's my only concern.
Yeah, that's a very valid one, and I frankly didn't think of that, but so it's a good point. My only other question would be, can we start a little earlier? Like 6:45 or something like that, 6:45 or even 6:30.
I can't make it any earlier.
You can't make it. Is there any other problem? If we started at 6:40, if 6:45 we blocked out basically half an hour or so for miscellaneous opening stuff. If we started at 6:45, would you be, the meat of the meeting would probably begin at 7:15. Would that be okay with you?
That's fine with me.
How do other people feel? Would a 6:45 start be okay?
Works for me.
Okay. And then I'll make a motion, the October 26th meetings begin at 6:45.
I'll second that.
Does the bylaw say anything? I know that's what you're probably looking at.
So we have a motion and a second, and I will address two things. One is that the bylaws do state 7 PM. I don't know that there's a real big issue if this committee votes now to make a change for next week to meet at a different time. Also, the bylaws do speak to the agenda and the order of the agenda. And so what we've been doing for the past several meetings, based on the way that we're structuring during this budget season, is we've been moving that new business up. And whether it makes sense to do so on a longer-term basis is probably something to consider. If we're going to take a motion every meeting, if we know that we're going to be having that new business every meeting in the same order. I would prefer to post that and have a vote next meeting if that's the case.
What do we need?
About the bylaw change?
About if we wanted to actually just make a bylaw change to move new business up, after delegations and
Just
individuals.
add that to the agenda and we'll just hit it next meeting.
Exactly, and then we'll notice it.
2/3, right? 2/3 to be here for that?
Correct, well, I believe voting in favor of it, but we always want to notice a bylaw change.
All right, well, let's vote on this time change first,
Just this one,
Just this one time.
just for this one meeting.
Okay.
All in favor of moving the October 26th meeting to begin at 6:45? Opposed?
I'm just gonna abstain.
Abstain, one abstention. Okay, and then as far as the adjustment to the bylaw, we can talk about that next time.
Yeah, I was just say we add it as an agenda item.
Yeah.
All right, I will entertain a moment.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Yes,
You're still under other business?
yes.
So I'd like to just bring up a couple things. So one would be, when we get correspondence, when we get a document that hits this table, it has to become a public document. So for instance, Michelle Ogier distributed a letter from the fire chief. I understand, so it's gotta get covered in there.
That will probably go with the minutes.
Perfect. Did the correspondence go around tonight? Got it.
Did not. I think we had the previous request. I thought that Mr. Green's request did go out in the last.
Yeah, so the
folder.
only thing I'm gonna say is for the last couple of meetings, I know they start there and they go halfway around the circle. They dead end. My only request is start at the end so they can go,
Maybe Katerina could hold on to them
okay?
and set them out that way.
And lastly, I'll work with whatever this board wants, but I'm trying to get a flavor of how you, Mr. Chairman, and this board want to operate in the sense of, do we want to have a little more structure in the meeting in the sense that, do we just have a free-for-all conversation? Or sometimes I see people who are requesting to speak, and while they're waiting, other conversations are going on. So I'm looking for, what does this board want? Just an open conversation, or a little bit more, or apply some rigidity as far as how we speak?
I find myself sometimes being overspoken, but it's generally because somebody else is bringing up the same point anyway, so I have no problem with the way it's going myself. A lot of times, I had another point I was gonna bring up, but I raised my hand, but she said it actually. So as long as the points get out there, it doesn't matter who says them. You know what I mean? On my point.
I think what I'd like to see is that we try to keep it so, there has been some undiscipline, and that's my fault. But I think one person at a time should speak.
I'm gonna give you an example.
And one person at a time, and we raise our hands, I try to acknowledge it. I understand that I'm dealing with a personal issue, and that I can't see too much on this side when I'm looking over there. It's just me. But I try to overcome that. But raise your hand, make your piece, and then folks just let the person speak, and then we can comment back and forth.
Sure.
That's my feeling.
I think this may help us because I think our meetings can be cut shorter. For instance, we just went into non-public. I think half that time, we could use half that time if we didn't go off track on topic. And so that's what I'm just saying. I think it could help us in the long run. We can accomplish more in less time.
I just had one thing to add to that. I think when someone is speaking, we should make sure that people aren't talking amongst themselves. If they're talking, they should wait and speak to everybody in the committee and not be talking just to the person to their left or right.
Yeah.
I like to call that as one conversation on the table. You can't have three groups of two people talking at it and try to watch what's going on and stuff like that. And I will admit I've been guilty of that myself, but I try to turn around and limit that.
The other point is, the people at home are hearing all the mics. And, so they're picking up, it makes it more difficult for people at home to hear what's going on at one time. So, if we're having a conversation, these mics are picking that up, and everybody's conversation is being picked up.
So from hearing different members of the board, it sounds like we want to focus our attention to you as our chairperson to run the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other issues on? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Great. Thank you very much. This meeting did at
9:55.
9:50.
Before 10 o'clock?